Chapter 207. Amorous Feelings? A deep and magnetic voice came into Ing Yi's ears. Ing Yi froze when he saw Hui Lang bowing his head and standing there respectfully. He couldn't help cursing in his heart, "You're not my brother! Why didn't you remind me when your master came?" Then he turned around and saw his master's enlarged face. He twitched his stiff mouth and said, My master. Is amorous feelings written on my face recently?" Yama Lord squinted at him. His majestic and cold eyes fell on Ing Yi, which inexplicably made him worried. "No, that's not it." He lowered his head, looking terrified. "I seem to hear that you are very curious about men? In that case, Hui Lang, send Ing Yi to the Cool Breeze gang, and let him observe for 3 days. Then he turned around and went back. "My master," Ing Yi cried at Yama Lord's back with a sad face, "I'm not interested in men, and I'm not curious about men. I don't want to go to the Cool Breeze gang." He, don't shout. Master never takes back his words. Let's go straight. I'll personally send you off. Ah. Grey Wolf laughed out loud, taking pleasure in his misfortune. He patted him on the shoulder and pulled him out. Ing Yi stared at him and said angrily, "Hui Lang, you did it on purpose, didn't you? I kept winking at you. You didn't realize it yourself. Who's to blame? Well, my master treats you very well. I was sent to the Cool Breeze gang last time and didn't have the chance to observe. You're different this time. Observe carefully and you won't ask such questions in the future." In this way, Ing Yi was sent to the Cool Breeze gang less than 2 days after Hui Lang came back, and all this had nothing to do with Fengjiu in the courtyard. She was now preparing to escape. At noon the next day, Hui Lang came to Fengjiu's courtyard. He knocked on the door and said, "Dr. Ghost." Fengjiu opened the door and walked out. Seeing Hui Lang, he was a little surprised and asked, "What's the matter?" This Hui Lang actually dared to look for her? Wasn't he afraid that she would give him another injection? "Master wants you to have a meal with him." He looked at the black and green face in front of him. He really couldn't understand why his master wanted him to accompany him for a meal. Hearing this, she smiled sheepishly. No need. Just tell him that I've already eaten." With that, she retreated and closed the door. Seeing this, Hui Lang frowned, but he didn't dare to forcefully take her there. Thus, he went back to report to his master. Meanwhile, in the main courtyard, after hearing Hui Lang's report, the Yama Lord's face darkened. "This woman is avoiding me." Seeing that his master's expression was not very good, Hui Lang did not dare to open his mouth and stood at the side in a well-behaved manner. At this moment, a black-clothed cultivator hurried in from outside and bowed on one knee. "Greetings, master." The Yama Lord glanced at him and asked, "Why are you back?" "Master, I've caught the man and he's waiting for you to interrogate him." Hearing this, the Yama Lord's deep eyes narrowed. He immediately stood up and said, "Lead the way." When Fengjiu heard that the Yama Lord was going out in the evening, after Elder Lin finished counting the herbs, he took the 1,000-year-old human spirit and directly put it into his space. Then, he swaggered out, stepped into the array, and quietly left Yen Lu. Chapter 208. Hearing this, the Yama Lord's face instantly darkened. A cold and dangerous aura emanated from his body. He narrowed his deep eyes and stared at Elder Lin. She ran away? Elder Lin and Hui Lang, who was standing behind the Yama Lord, could not help but tense up when they felt the cold aura in the air. Yes. When I went to the medicine building, I saw that the 1,000-year-old ginseng was missing. I went to look for Gui, but he was also missing. I asked the guards and they said that they saw him wandering around in the evening. No one noticed him, so... The Yama Lord narrowed his eyes and looked at the dark sky. His eyes were dark and his lips were tightly pursed. He said in a deep voice, "Hui Lang, take someone out to look for her immediately." Yes. Hui Lang accepted the order and was about to leave when he heard the Yama Lord's voice again. "If you find her, Don't touch her to avoid hurting her. Hearing this, the corners of Hui Lang's mouth twitched. He quickly lowered his head and answered, yes. Then he quickly left. The Yama Lord walked. He did not return to the main courtyard. Instead, he went to the courtyard where Fengjiu lived. Elder Lin, who was following behind him, saw this and opened his mouth. He could only silently retreat. The Yama Lord opened the door and looked at the empty room. His eyes darkened. There seemed to be a lingering medicinal fragrance in the air. He walked around the room. When he came to the side of the room, he touched a piece of paper that was pressed under the pillow. He stepped forward and took it out. When his eyes fell on the paper, he could not help but curl his lips. A rare gentleness appeared on his handsome and resolute face. A woman with perverted thoughts but no gut. On the paper there were two people clearly drawn. She was dressed in men's clothes. Her index finger gently lifted the naked man's chin, and the other hand fell on his abdominal muscles. Her eyes were looking outside the paper, full of provocation. Her eyes fell on the top of the two people's heads in the drawing. She could not help but whisper, Yama Lord Xiaoshuo? Ghost Dr. Xiaoshuo? This woman is really asking for a beating. He laughed and scolded in a low and deep voice. In his heart, he hoped to see her immediately. A feeling called longing rose uncontrollably in his heart, and he was unable to extricate himself from it. However, a feeling arose in his heart. He felt that if she ran away this time, the people he sent out would not be able to catch up to her. After all, that woman was as cunning as a fox and tricky. If he let her run away, it would be difficult to catch up with her again. It was only at this moment that he realized that other than knowing that she was called the Ghost Doctor, he didn't even know her name. If Hui Lang and the others couldn't get her back, then it would be difficult to find her again in the future. Just as the Yama Lord had expected, Hui Lang came back with his men at dawn. He braced himself and reported, Master, your subordinate has been searching for the Ghost Doctor all night. I'm afraid that she has escaped. The Yama Lord's eyes darkened. This answer was within his expectations. Tell the people of Yen Palace to pay attention to the rumors outside. If they hear any news about the Ghost Doctor, report back immediately. Yes. Hui Lang respectfully replied and went to pass down the instructions. The Yama Lord stood in the courtyard with his hands behind his back. He looked at the sky and the corners of his lips curled slightly. He softly muttered, We will definitely meet again. At this moment, Fengjiu, who had been unsuccessfully searched for the entire night by the people of Yen Palace, was climbing up the hill with her face covered in dirt. As she walked, she looked at the forest in front of her and laughed excitedly. Ha ha ha! I finally climbed out. Chapter 209. Amen. She rolled from the top of the hill to the bottom of the hill until she crashed into a tree before stopping. That pain made her groan as she fell onto the ground and couldn't get up for some time. Until after a while later, she heaved a sigh of relief as she laid on the ground and looked up at the sky, feeling that it wasn't easy for her to escape from Yandian. When she ran out of Yandian's array, she then realized that there were mountains on 3 sides and there was only one way out. If she wanted to escape, she naturally couldn't run through that path, so she directly climbed over that mountain. After another night, she walked past several arrays and a barrier before she finally reached here. Luckily, she had used her spiritual energy to break open the seal on her profound energy last night, otherwise she would probably have been captured back. After resting for a while, she stood up and looked around her surroundings, and based on her feelings, she found a direction and continued walking. She intended to contact Leng Shuang after she got out, in case he was worried sick after not hearing from her for such a long time. But what she didn't expect was that she wasn't sure of her current position, so the following scene of danger made her dumbfounded. If she was high up in the sky, she would definitely see that the surrounding 100 miles around her was a forest. Want to walk out? Without 7 to 8 days, don't even think about it. Walking alone in the forest, she looked left and right and felt that this place was a little strange. Every once in a while, there would be a small colored flag stuck in a place, and after walking for a while, some arrays would appear. Some arrays even contained dangers, while some were just some maze arrays. Strange, what exactly is this place? She murmured as she walked. Suddenly, she saw two young men who were supporting each other and panting as they sat down under a tree. Her eyes lit up and she quickly walked up to them. "Young masters, may I ask?" Before she could finish her sentence, the two of them heard her voice and almost didn't even look at her as they speedily scurried towards the other side. She was stunned for a moment. She had walked for half a day before she met these two people, so she couldn't let them run away. Hence, she chased after them while shouting, "Hey! Young masters, don't run. I'm just here to ask for directions." However, it would have been better if she didn't shout. The moment she shouted, the two of them ran even faster. Huff! What the hell? She frowned and exhaled. Looking at the two figures, she did not chase after them. Instead, she followed behind them at a leisurely pace. She thought, if I follow them, I'll be able to get out of here, right? However, she wasn't anxious, but the two young men were. "Which faction is that person from? Why have you been following us for so long? What is he trying to do?" One of them was sweating profusely and had a panicked expression on his face. When he looked back, he saw that the red figure was still slowly following behind him about 30 meters away. He could not help but cry. "Phew! I can't run anymore. If I die, so be it," another chubby young man said as he sat on the ground. He stared at the Fengju behind him and shouted, "Which faction are you from? You've been with us for so long, it's enough." Seeing that they had stopped running, Fengju quickly walked over. Looking at the two vigilant youths, he grinned and said, "I'm just here to ask for directions. Why are you running?" What? Asking for directions? Chapter 210. What is this place? Fengju looked at them in confusion. "I saw colorful flags in the forest, and after walking for half a day, I still couldn't get out. What the hell is this place?" Hearing this, the two finally believed that he was just asking for directions. At this moment, the two heaved a sigh of relief. The slightly fatter youth stared at him, and said in a displeased tone, "Brother, you're too unkind. We were just asking for directions, and you chased us for half a day? You even scared us half to death. What is this place? Why did you run away when you saw me?" she asked in confusion. "This is a training ground. In this forest, there are some villains and evil cultivators captured by the three sects and the School of Stars and Clouds over the years. We're cultivators from the Gui sect, and we came here to train together with the other sects and the School of Stars and Clouds." "Then why are you running?" Fengju raised his eyebrows. This was a training ground? No wonder she had passed through so many formations and that protective barrier. If she didn't have the space treasure, she probably wouldn't have been able to pass through that barrier. "It's all because of those damned cultivators from the Cheonghua sect. They actually wanted to rob and kill," the fatter youth said angrily, his face full of anger. "We were originally traveling with them, and we killed many demonic beasts and evil cultivators along the way. We got a lot of things, but they were greedy and violated the agreement between the sects and the school. They even said that if we killed them, no one would know. Those damned bastards. When I get out, I'll definitely report this to Master and get justice." Fengju nodded, showing that he understood, and asked, "Then you haven't told me, how do we get out?" "It's not that easy to get out," the two said dispiritedly. "There's a barrier here. Outsiders can't get in, and people can't get out." As soon as they finished speaking, the two seemed to realize something, and looked at Fengju in astonishment. "How did you get in? You're not from any sect or school, nor are you an evil cultivator or an evil cultivator. How did you get in?" Fengju rubbed his chin and thought for a while. He glanced at the two of them and said, "Actually, let me tell you. I'm a student of the Academy of Stars and Clouds, but I accidentally offended someone and was knocked unconscious and thrown here. That's why I don't even know where this place is." "You are a student of the School of Stars and Clouds?" The skinnier youth looked at him suspiciously. "Then why aren't you wearing the School of Stars and Clouds uniform?" She rolled her eyes and said speechlessly, "I already said that he was knocked out and thrown in here. How could he still be wearing his uniform?" The two of them did not know much about the happenings within the School of Stars and Nebula. Hearing what he said, they thought that it was impossible for an outsider to barge in. It should be as the young man said, that he had offended someone and was thrown in here. Hence, the two of them looked at each other and did not ask any more questions. Fatty looked at Fengjiu and said, "If you want to get out, you need to accumulate 1,000 experience points. Looking at you, I don't think you even have an experience jade plate." Fengjiu could be said to be blind. He really did not know much about the academy insect. Hence, when he heard this, he could not help but ask curiously, "How do I accumulate experience points? What does it have to do with the experience jade plate?" Chapter 211. Fengjiu smiled embarrassedly and said, "Please tell me more about it." The experience jade tablet was personally imbued with divine sense by the principal of the School of Stars and Clouds, Senior Immortal Redwood. As long as a drop of divine sense is dripped into the jade tablet, as long as we kill magical beasts or evil cultivators in the training forest, the experience jade tablet will automatically record the experience points. Once the 1,000 experience points are filled, the training will end. Otherwise, we will have to stay here forever. At this point, the fat youth paused and said, "But killing a level 1 to 2 magical beasts only gives 10 experience points. Level 3 to level 4 magical beasts give 30 experience points. However, these level 3 to level 4 magical beasts have the strength of a level 6 or 7 martial master. Just like this, how many do you think we need to kill to accumulate 1,000 experience points?" Fengjiu was stunned when he heard this and asked, "Then there are no magical beasts that give a lot of experience points?" "Hey, look, this is a newbie, right?" The fat youth nudged his companion beside him, and the two of them grinned. "Newbie?" Fengjiu raised his eyebrows. He thought to himself, "She really is a newbie. Looks like I have to go back and cram some knowledge about the sects and schools of the Green Soaring Kingdom. Let me tell you, brother, you better pray that you don't meet any magical beasts of level 5 or above or evil cultivators of the Great Soul Master level. Otherwise, you will only die. How can you talk about experience points? Also, you can't steal experience points. You can only steal the valuable items from the magical beasts that you kill." Hearing this, Fengjiu asked again, "Then how much experience do magical beasts of level 5 and above and evil cultivators of the Great Soul Master level give?" 100 experience points. But let me tell you, if you meet them, run away immediately. Don't fight them head-on. Look at us, 2 peak soul masters, being forced to such a miserable state. You know that this place is not fun." As the fat youth spoke, he took out a white jade tablet from his sleeve and handed it to Fengjiu. "This is for you. I begged my master for a long time to get this extra one. Keep it on you in case you lose it." Receiving the white jade token, Fengjiu revealed a smile. "Many thanks. May I know how to address you two big brothers?" "Haha, I haven't introduced myself yet. I'm Kai Yong, nicknamed Fatty." "You can just call me Fatty," Fatty said with a smile. "My surname is Chen and my name is Shuahai. I'm from the same sect as Fatty." The skinny youth said, "Me? He?" She narrowed her eyes and smiled. She looked at the two of them and said, "My name is Fengjiu. You can call me Xiaojiu." "Hee, I didn't expect you guys to be so free. They're actually chatting here." A sinister voice rang out, startling Fatty and Chen Shuafa so much that they jumped up. "It's you again." Other than anger on their faces, there was also a trace of panic and vigilance. Feng Jiu turned around and saw that there were 4 men and 1 woman. They were all wearing the same white robes. The man in the lead looked to be around 20 years old, but his strength was already that of a level 2 Great Soul Master. As for the 3 people behind him, their strength was also that of a Peak Soul Master. The difference in strength between them and the fat youth was obvious. It was no wonder that the 2 of them were so panicked when they saw these people. Chapter 212. I didn't think that we would meet again so soon. The man crossed his arms and looked at them. His gaze moved back and forth between the fatty and Chen Shuai. Seeing that their faces were slightly pale and the fear in their eyes could not be concealed, he could not help but reveal a malicious smile. It seems that you also know that you can't escape. That's right, how can 2 cultivators at the peak of spiritual master be a match for us? As long as you let us go, we can give you everything we have, and we promise that we won't tell anyone about what happened here. Chen Shuai forced himself to be calm as he spoke. Ah! The few of them raised their heads and laughed out loud. The voluptuous woman among them looked at them with disdain and said, "If we kill you, everything you have will also be ours. Moreover, dead people don't speak." Not bad, not bad. The leader reached out and hugged the woman in his arms. Looking at the ugly expressions of the 2 people, a dark light flashed across his vicious eyes as he said, "However, I can give you a way out." He paused and looked at the hopeful gazes of the 2 people. He smiled evilly and said, "As long as you kill each other, then I can let the one who is still alive go. Furthermore, I won't chase after you anymore. What do you think?" When Feng Jiu heard this, she raised her eyebrows and glanced at the vicious gaze. Then, she looked at the fatty and Chen Shuai. She also wanted to know what the 2 of them would choose in this situation. "Don't you dare try to drive a wedge between us. We won't let you do as you wish," the fatty roared angrily. He clenched his fists and circulated the spiritual energy in his body. Even if he knew that he could not win, he had to fight. However, when he thought of the young man he had just met, he turned his head slightly and said in a low voice, "Xiao Jiu, quickly run for your life." However, the sinister man's words caused ripples in Chen Shuai's heart. Perhaps he knew that he was going to die, so he placed his hand on his waist and struggled internally. He looked at the man surnamed Li and happened to meet his encouraging gaze. Chen Shuai clenched his teeth and shouted loudly, "Fatty, I'm sorry." At the same time, he pulled out a dagger from his waist and stabbed it into the back of the fat man who had turned around to talk to Feng Jiu. Fatty let out a cry of surprise as Feng Jiu pulled him forward. He lost his balance and fell to the ground. Not only was the fatty stunned by this scene, even Chen Shuai, who had stabbed with his dagger, was stunned. He looked at the red-clothed Feng Jiu in front of him in astonishment. His lips moved, then he clenched his teeth and charged forward again with his dagger, stabbing at the fatty who had fallen to the ground. Seeing this, Feng Jiu raised his eyebrows. The corners of his lips curled slightly as he lazily said, "Even if you kill fatty, they won't let you off." At this time, the fatty also came back to his senses. Seeing his brother holding a dagger and stabbing at him, his face was filled with grief and disappointment. "Ahai! How could you do this?" Although he had fallen to the ground in anger, he lifted his leg and kicked. That kick contained spiritual energy and forced the fatty to retreat a few steps. After failing to kill the fatty twice in a row, Chen Shuai glared at Feng Jiu in anger. As if he had lost his mind, he roared and charged at Feng Jiu, who had his arms crossed in front of his chest as if it had nothing to do with him. Chapter 213. The people on the other side looked as if they were watching a good show. When the fatty saw this, he was shocked and quickly stood up. He angrily shouted, "Ahai! Quickly stop!" Feng Jiu was just a rookie who had just debuted. How could he be a match for Ahai, who was at the peak of the Spirit Master level? Thinking of this, he wanted to go forward and stop him, But the next scene shocked him so much that his jaw almost dropped. Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and glanced at the angry Chen Shuhai with a smile that was not a smile. When she saw him holding a dagger that was filled with spirit qi and stabbing towards her, she did not dodge and just stood there. However, when the dagger fiercely stabbed down, she saw Chen Shuhai lightly raise his hand and catch the other party's hand. Gotcha! Hiss! The sound of sucking in air and screaming rang out. It cut through the air and entered everyone's ears. The sound of bones breaking, as well as the painful expression on Chen Shuhai's face, caused everyone to look at the red-clothed young man with shock and astonishment. When they came into contact with the other party's indifferent and cold gaze that concealed a fierce killing intent, everyone was shocked. A feeling of coldness that penetrated their hearts rose from the soles of their feet to their hearts, causing them to involuntarily shiver. "Why do you want to kill me?" Fengjiu's indifferent words carried a bit of coldness. Her half-squinted clear eyes fell on the young man who was frowning in pain. She coldly said, "Although I'm just a rookie who has just debuted, it's not that easy to kill me. Do you know that? Rookie?" The corners of the mouths of the people on the side twitched. As they retreated, they vigilantly stared at the red-clothed youth and thought to themselves, "A rookie can restrain a peak spirit master cultivator with one hand? Don't lie. If he really was a rookie, his neck would have already been slit." Chen Shuhai cried out in pain. He wanted to break free, but he found that he could not break free from the youth's grip. Even the moment he moved, his bones would shift, causing him to break out in a cold sweat. At this moment, he finally remembered something that they had neglected. This young man was able to follow behind them for so long, how could he be a rookie? Perhaps his strength was far above theirs. Yes, that must be it. Otherwise, why were they unable to see through his cultivation? At this moment, he regretted it. Perhaps he didn't need to do this. The youth would have helped them at the critical moment, but now, Xiaojiu, I know I was wrong. Please forgive me. I was just confused for a moment, please spare me. He endured the bone-piercing pain in his hand and hurriedly begged. He looked at the equally shocked Fatty and said, Fatty, I really didn't do it on purpose. I was just confused for a moment. Fatty, help me out. Fatty took a deep breath to calm himself down. Just as he was about to speak, he heard Fengjiu's cold voice. I usually don't show mercy to those who want to kill me. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone's hearts stopped. They only saw the red figure use a strange technique to grip Chen Shuhai's throat. With a crack, his life was cut off. Looking at Chen Shuhai, who had collapsed before he could even scream, Fatty swallowed his saliva and his face was filled with horror. Heavens! Chapter 214. Just as the people who saw this were about to slip away, they heard the red-clothed youth's lazy voice that carried a dangerous aura. You want to leave? Their footsteps paused and their expressions stiffened. Perhaps it was because the red-clothed youth's decisiveness and ruthlessness scared them, or perhaps it was because of his unfathomable strength, but they didn't want to make an enemy out of him. Their intuition told them that if they made an enemy out of this red-clothed youth, they would definitely die miserably. The fatty stared blankly and didn't react to the sudden change in the situation. Shouldn't they be the ones thinking of a way to escape? How did it become the other party trying to slip away? One had to know that aside from the peak spirit master cultivators, there was still a great spirit master cultivator. His heart was startled, but his gaze was still fixed on Fengjiu. He wanted to see through his cultivation, but he discovered that he couldn't see through the other party's true cultivation. All they could see was the cultivation that he revealed and was willing to let them see. At this moment, seeing the evil and dangerous aura on Fengjiu's body, they realized that this youth was the most terrifying. What do you want? The Li cultivator didn't have a trace of viciousness, only vigilance. Hearing this, Fengjiu narrowed his eyes and smiled maliciously. Of course I want to rob you. Hurry up and hand over your valuables. Otherwise, I don't mind killing you first and then robbing you. After all, if you die, your belongings will become ownerless. Hearing this, the corners of the people's mouths twitched. These words were originally said by them, but now it came from this youth's mouth. The wheel of fortune had turned too quickly. Seniorly, even if we attack together, we still don't have a chance of winning? A cultivator unwillingly lowered his voice and asked. His gaze was fixed on the youth in front of him who was asking for a beating. The opponent's strength is unfathomable. Just the speed at which he grabbed Chen Shuahai's throat is not something you or I can compare to. If we meet him head-on, I'm afraid we'll lose our lives. The Li cultivator frowned and stared at Feng Jiu. He said in a low voice, "Brother, I'm willing to give you all the valuables we've obtained on our way here. However, I hope you'll keep your word and not attack us after taking our things. That will depend on how much sincerity you have in your offer." Hearing this, the man with the surname Li gritted his teeth and said to the people beside him, "Take out everything." As he spoke, he took out the magic beast furs and some useful beast horns that he had hunted along the way and placed them on the ground. When the people behind him saw this, although they were unwilling, they had no choice but to take out the items and place them on the ground one by one. The fatty at the side stared at the things on the ground for a while before shouting, "The one surnamed Li still hasn't taken out the beast crystals. That's the precious one." When the man with the surname Li heard this, his face darkened and a vicious look flashed across his eyes as he stared at the fatty. Finally, under Feng Jiu's half-smiling gaze, he painfully took out the 2 beast crystals and placed them on the ground. "Everything is here." Seeing this, Feng Jiu nodded. "All right, you may leave." The few of them glanced at the pile of things on the ground before forcefully averting their gaze and quickly leaving. After they left, the fatty looked at the valuables on the ground and his face overflowed with excitement as he looked at Feng Jiu. "Xiao Jiu, you've..." Just as he spoke, he was interrupted. "Phew! You scared me to death." Chapter 2:15. Seeing this, Fatty's mouth twitched and he asked, "Kid, are you just trying to scare people?" Perhaps from the bottom of his heart, he still didn't quite believe that this youth's cultivation was stronger than that surnamed Li's. After all, the other was a great spirit master cultivator. Even if he couldn't see through his cultivation, at most a peak spirit master would be a bit stronger than him. Moreover, if he was really strong, he wouldn't be so scared that his legs went soft and he sat on the ground, right? Shoo! She made a shushing gesture and looked around. Then, she picked up the 2 beast crystals and looked at them. "This is really good stuff. Not every magical beast has it." She played with the 2 beast crystals and kept them in her space. Looking at the pile of things on the ground, she waved her hand and kept them all in her space. Seeing this, Fatty looked at him strangely, feeling that this person didn't understand. "You said he was weak. But he could kill the peak spirit master Chen Shuahai in seconds. You said he was strong. But why didn't he see the arrogance and self-satisfaction of a strong person? Instead, he was neurotic and strange. I'll give you the things on him." Feng Jiu gestured and looked at Chen Shuahai's body on the ground. "Thank you." Fatty cupped his fist in thanks and kept the bag at his waist. Looking at the dead person, he had a complicated feeling. He didn't expect that after being brothers, it would end like this. Let's go, let's go." Feng Jiu patted his shoulder and said. Fatty responded. Finally, he gathered a cluster of flames in his palm and burned the body to ashes to prevent it from being torn apart by the magical beasts. Feng Jiu, who was in front, turned back to take a look. His lips curled and his eyes flashed. This Fatty was indeed loyal. The 2 of them walked forward. Under Feng Jiu's lead, Fatty was surprised to find that they didn't encounter a single array. He couldn't help but become more curious about Feng Jiu's identity. "Xiao Jiu, are you really an outer sect student of Star Cloud? Don't I look like one?" She glanced at him and asked with a smile. The Fatty shook his head. "It doesn't seem like it. Your strength should be above mine. Moreover, you're not inferior to a great spirit master." He paused and said, "Although I haven't been to the nebula, I know that with such strength, he's definitely a top student in the nebula." "Hee hee." She grinned, but didn't say anything else. Fatty knew that he didn't want to talk about it, so he didn't ask anymore. It was only when a powerful aura suddenly hit them in the face that the two of them quickly retreated and stopped. What a strong fluctuation of spiritual energy! Seeing the fluctuations of spiritual energy and sword energy in the air, the fatty exclaimed. He pondered and said, "The disciples and students who came here to train can't have this kind of strength. I think they are villains or evil cultivators." Fengjiu looked at the aura in the air, narrowed his eyes and said, "Wait for me here, I'll go ahead and take a look." With that, the red figure dashed forward, so fast that even the fatty couldn't stop him. Ah! Those sects and the people from the nebula are all blind. They actually sent the famous left protector of Tianyuan Palace, Xiang Hua, in here as a spirit master level villain. 7 or 8 evil cultivators surrounded a bearded middle-aged man and laughed sinisterly. "But that's true. Today's Xianghua is almost like a cripple. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to meet you here. Ha 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 ha." Fengjiu, who was in the dark, heard the evil cultivator's words and his eyes moved slightly. Chapter 216. Her gaze fell on the middle-aged man called Xiang Hua. His clothes were tattered, his hair was messy, and his beard was unkempt. He looked like a homeless man. She sized him up and found that his cultivation was indeed only at the spirit master level. However, listening to the evil cultivators, it seemed that his original strength was not only that. Tianyuan Palace? She really did not expect to meet people from the Tianyuan Palace in such a place. There were 7 or 8 evil cultivators, and 3 of them were at the second stage of the Great Spirit Master level. She was curious whether Xiang Hua could survive. At this moment, the leader of the evil cultivators shouted, and the other evil cultivators instantly attacked Xiang Hua. The sharp sword in their hands emitted a strong aura of spiritual energy, which spread out in the surroundings. Sword chi whistled through the air, leaving sword marks on the ground. Fengjiu leaned behind a tree and watched. She found that Xiang Hua's strength was very solid. Although he was only at the spirit master level, he was not careless in dealing with the evil cultivators. His attacks were ruthless and accurate. Almost every evil cultivator of the same level would be killed within 3 moves. In the end, when he was surrounded by the 3 second stage Great Spirit Master evil cultivators, he gradually fell into a disadvantageous position. Hiss! Xiang Hua's arm was cut by the enemy's sharp sword. Blood gushed out and dyed his sleeve. He did not have a long sword in his hand, so he could not resist the attacks of the Great Spirit Master evil cultivators. He could only retreat step by step until he picked up a long sword from the ground to meet them. However, his strength was there, and the enemy was 3 against 1. After a long battle, there was no doubt that he would lose. Looking at Xiang Hua, who was hit by a sword on the left and a blade on the right, Fengjiu's eyes flashed and she pondered. She was not familiar with the people from the Tianyuan Palace. She did not know what kind of people they were. Was he really an unpardonable villain? However, when she recalled her master's words, she sighed helplessly in her heart. When she saw the 3 evil cultivators' hands slashing toward Xiang Hua, she moved her fingers slightly and 3 silver needles containing hidden strength shot out from her fingers. The 3 of them let out a muffled groan as their bodies instantly froze. They raised their swords and were about to slash down, but they were unable to do so. They only felt a numbing sensation spreading through their bodies, making them unable to exert any strength. In the next moment, the swords in their hands also fell to the ground. Seeing this, Xiang Hua narrowed his eyes and a fierce look flashed in his eyes. The sword in his hand instantly slashed across the throats of the 3 people, causing blood to spurt out. After killing those heretical cultivators, Xiang Hua looked at the red figure leaning against the tree. He cupped his hands and said, "Thank you." Then he turned and left. Seeing this, Fengjiu raised his eyebrows. "Wait." Xiang Hua frowned and looked sternly at Fengjiu, asking silently, "You're the left protector of the heavenly Yuan Palace? Not bad. You're a villain." Hearing this, he sneered, "Villain? How many decent people hadn't killed before? Some of them are even worse than us." Fengjiu nodded in agreement and asked, "How did you get in?" She was curious. Xiang Hua clenched his fist. "It's none of your business. Anyway, I saved your life." She crossed her arms and leaned against the tree branch lazily. He was silent for a while before saying, "You were betrayed for a foundation building pill. TSK, I didn't know you were so valuable." Chapter 217. Xiang Hua's face darkened as he glanced at Fengjiu and walked away. This time, Fengjiu didn't call out to him but watched him walk away. Not long later, he disappeared into the forest. Xiaojiu? Fatty had been waiting there for a long time, and hearing that there wasn't any movement, he came over to take a look. When he saw the few corpses of the evil cultivators on the ground, he was slightly stunned. "You killed them?" "No, the person who killed them has left." Fengjiu shrugged and said. Seeing a evil cultivator's robe puffed up, she couldn't help but go forward to take a look. What was hidden in his arms was not anything else but an egg slightly bigger than a fist. "What egg is this? There are patterns on it?" She looked at it but couldn't make out anything. Fatty took a look and said, "This is a magical beast egg." "Actually, why would there be a magical beast egg?" Just at this moment, a rustling sound was heard. Both of them looked around, and when their gazes landed on a huge python which was about 6 meters long, Fengjiu's face was filled with astonishment and seriousness. This is a 7th-tier giant python. Quickly run." Once his voice fell, he broke into a run. But after running for 20 meters, he saw that Fatty was still standing there hugging the egg. He couldn't help but shouted, "Fatty! Quickly run! Run, I can't run!" Hearing his sobbing voice, Fengjiu then noticed that his body was trembling. That pair of legs were shaking as he stood there watching that giant python scurrying forward. "Damn it!" she cursed softly. She thought that this fellow was very daring. Who knew that when he saw a 7th-tier giant python, he was so frightened that he kept trembling and couldn't even run. Seeing that giant python pouncing towards him with its mouth wide open, she gritted her teeth and mobilized the profound energy in her body, dashed forward and dragged him away. Hiss! However, that was a 7th-tier giant python. Its speed and ability was equivalent to a golden core cultivator. If Fengjiu was alone, it would still be fine. But she had to drag Fatty along, so her speed was naturally greatly reduced. "Woo! It's catching up," Fatty shouted in fear. Every time the python slithered forward, it would open its mouth and bite him. Every time, it would almost bite him. He was so frightened that his body went limp and cold sweat broke out. If it wasn't for Fengjiu pulling his collar and dragging him along, he would have probably become the giant python's snack. Bang! Bang bang! Hiss! The serpent's body slammed into the ground, creating loud banging sounds. The ground shook from the impact. The moment the oppressive aura of a Class 7 demonic beast was released, some of the lower-ranked demonic beasts in the vicinity fled. Even the faces of some of the sect disciples and Star Cloud Academy members who heard the commotion changed drastically. With such a commotion, could it be that Class 7 Sacred Emperor Python? Damn it! Who was it that provoked that 7th Order Sage Emperor Python? That was a 7th-tier demonic beast with strength comparable to a Jindan cultivator. Isn't that courting death? Those who heard the commotion all ran away, afraid that they would bump into that Class 7 Sacred Emperor Python. On the other side, Fengjiu and Fatty, who were being chased by the sacred Emperor Python, were not in a good situation. Rip! The sound of clothes being torn was heard. A large piece of cloth was torn from her buttocks, revealing a white patch. He was so shocked that his heart tightened. He swallowed his saliva and shouted in a trembling voice, "Xiao Jiu, ninth brother, ninth master, quick, quick, run!" Chapter 218. Feng Jiu was also exhausted from dragging him along. As he ran, he shouted, "Fatty, quickly throw the egg back to the python! Hurry!" The python kept chasing after them, so it was obvious that the problem was with the egg in Fatty's hand. Oh, okay. Fatty hurriedly responded and threw the egg in his hand at the python that was chasing after them. "Here you go." But in the next moment, he was dumbfounded. Feng Jiu heard a cracking sound and turned around in shock. He saw the egg fall to the ground and shatter into pieces. The unformed snake egg had turned into a yellow and white omelette. "Fatty, you bastard!" They saw the giant python's body stiffen at that moment. It lowered its head and sniffed. Then, it suddenly raised its head. Its vicious and ferocious snake eyes were suddenly dyed with blood red. With a hiss, it chased after them. Its speed was several times faster than before. "I didn't do it on purpose." Fatty was in a terrible state. When the python opened its mouth to bite, he had to tense his body to prevent himself from being swallowed. Knowing that running like this was not a solution, Feng Jiu gritted his teeth and used the momentum to throw Fatty out. "Hurry up and run." Fatty only felt a gust of wind blow him away, and in an instant, he flew more than 10 meters away. He didn't stop once he landed on the ground and started running. He didn't even look back as he shouted, "Little Nine, quick, run!" Feng Jiu's gaze fell on the big tree in front of them. Without Fatty, her speed was much faster. Thus, as she ran forward, she stepped on the tree trunk and flipped backward, pouncing on the giant python that was chasing after Fatty. She descended from the sky and rode on the slippery body of the giant python. She pulled out the dagger in her boot and stabbed it fiercely. Hiss! 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 The giant python's eyes were bloodshot with a ferocious glint. It swung its body vigorously and twisted its thick body to wrap around Feng Jiu in an instant. Feng Jiu saw the snake's tail wrap around her. She was about to jump away, but the snake's body swayed and slipped. Her body was tightly wrapped around by the snake's body. The 6-meter-long giant python was terrifyingly strong. When it tightened its body, Feng Jiu lost all ability to move. All the bones in her body were compressed, as if they were about to be forcefully crushed. The suffocating feeling and the helpless aura of death made her realize once again that she was still too weak. "Xiao Jiu!" Fatty, who had already escaped, ran back. He gathered flames in his hands and attacked the giant python. When the giant python saw him, it looked as if it had seen its father's murderer. Its blood-red eyes were filled with viciousness as it opened its mouth and pounced at him. Feng Jiu was constricted to the point that she was a little confused. She could only feel cold sweat dripping down her forehead. However, when she heard the fatty's voice, she saw that he was trying to attract the attention of the giant python. Seeing this, she calmed herself down. Her hands and feet were tied and she couldn't move, so she opened her mouth and bit the snake's body directly. She bit it hard and felt a warm and fishy snake blood rush into her mouth. She swallowed it directly and bit it tightly. Hiss! The giant python hissed in pain and tightened its body, trying to strangle her. However, the pain and blood in its body increased. It could only hiss angrily and fling Feng Jiu away with its tail. Chapter 219. The snake raised its head and hissed as the dagger pierced through its body. The snake twitched a few times before it lay motionless on the ground, allowing the snake's blood to spread all over the ground. Phew! Feng Jiu exhaled lightly and felt as if all the strength in her body had disappeared as she fell onto the snake's body. This giant python was a 7th-level magical beast, and its skin was thick and tough. Because she wanted to kill it in one move, she used almost all of her Xian Qi to pierce through the snake's skin and hit its fatal spot. After this battle, she clearly understood how terrifying a Golden Core Adept's strength was. She could only kill this 7th-level giant python by luck. If she were to fight with a Golden Core Adept, then, even surviving would be a problem. Dead. Fatty fell onto the ground after being sprayed by the giant python's blood. Looking at the dead giant python, he couldn't help but pat his chest and said with lingering fear, "Oh my God! I never thought that I could be so brave. A 7th-level magical beast." I actually ran back. At this moment, Fengjiu, who had rested for a while, had already dug out a beast crystal from the giant python's stomach. She took the beast crystal and looked at it. Seeing that it was a wind attribute beast crystal, she kept it first. Different magical beasts had different attributes, and their beast crystals could be used for cultivators of different attributes to cultivate and increase their strength. Hence, they were very precious. Xiaojiu, do you know how much experience a 7th-level magical beast is worth? Fatty swallowed his saliva and looked at the 6-meter-long giant python on the ground. How much? Fengjiu asked. 1,000. A whole 1,000. That is a 7th-level magical beast equivalent to a Golden Core Adept. It is said that there is only one giant python here. My master even specially instructed us to run away if we meet one. I didn't think that you would be able to kill it. Saying this, his eyes were filled with worship as he looked at her. Fengjiu shook her head. I was just lucky. I was almost strangled to death by it. Let's bring this giant python out. This meat is from a 7th-level magical beast and is very nourishing for cultivators. Also, this python's skin can be sold at a high price. It is said that it can be used to refine weapons. She nodded. Just now, this giant python had caused such a huge commotion, the cultivators nearby should have known. At this moment, it was best to keep the giant python and quickly leave. Otherwise, if they attracted the attention of those people, they would be greedy and a fierce battle would be inevitable. Thus, after Fengjiu kept the giant python in her space, she looked at her blood-stained red clothes and frowned. I know of water nearby. Near here, I'll bring you there. Fatty reached out and put his hand on Fengjiu's shoulder as if they were good brothers. However, when he saw Fengjiu staring at his hand, he couldn't help but retract his hand in embarrassment. That, he said. But when Fengjiu saw that his pants were torn by the giant python and revealed his white flesh, the corner of his mouth twitched. He looked away and thought to himself, there is no beauty to speak of. In her mind, she inexplicably thought of the Yama Lord's tight and perky buttocks, as well as his hot and sexy figure. Just thinking about it made her ears tingle. She cursed inwardly, why am I thinking of him? Chapter 220. In the training forest, Fatty brought Fengjiu to the water source. In fact, it was just a small stream in the shrubbery. Xiaojiu, this is the place. We can just take a bath here and change our clothes. Fatty said and began to take off his clothes. Seeing this, Fengjiu looked away and said, Then you can take a bath here. I'll go upstream. With that, he walked upstream. Fatty was stunned for a moment. You're going upstream? Isn't that the bath water that I have to wash you? I'm not washing. I'm just going to wash my face and change my clothes. Fengjiu said and turned around to glance at him, saying, You're not allowed to follow me. Alright. Although he was confused, he did not follow him. Instead, he returned to the stream and quickly washed up. After all, it was not safe to stay in a place like this. Fengjiu sensed the surrounding aura. After confirming that there was no one around, he took off his blood-stained red clothes and changed into a clean set of clothes. He then went to the stream and scooped up some water to wash his face. He cleaned off the ointment on his face and revealed his original appearance. Using the clear water mirror, he could see the reflection of his beautiful face in the water. His snow-white skin was sparkling and translucent with a moving luster. The scars on his face had all disappeared without a trace. What appeared was a face so perfect that it could take one's breath away. The person in the water mirror smiled faintly. Her smile was 3 parts demonic and 7 parts wanton. Contrasted with her serene eyes, she gave off a noble aura that stood out from the rest. Although Su Royun had Fengqing's face, she was not her. Even if her face was similar, her demeanor and temperament were different. Fengjiu was different. This face did not look out of place at all, because in her previous life, this was her original appearance. She could not be more familiar with this face. After changing into a clean set of red clothes and washing her face, she felt like a new person. Even her mood was lifted. She took out a water bag from her space and filled it with water. Just then, she heard Fatty's voice behind her. "Xiaojiu, are you done?" "All right." She responded and put the water bag into the space. She stood up and turned to look at the Fatty. "Let's go." At this time, when the Fatty saw her, he couldn't help but widen his eyes. His face was full of astonishment. You are little Nine? How did she change her clothes and wash her face, as if she was a different person? Are you stunned by my beauty?" "Ah." Fengjiu laughed, looked at him, and joked, "I'm just so handsome. You don't have to be jealous. You can't be jealous." Hearing this, the Fatty heaved a sigh of relief and patted his chest. "You scared me to death. I thought you were a girl." Fengjiu smiled embarrassedly and touched his face narcissistically. "Yes, many people who see my face say so." As soon as she finished speaking, she looked at Fatty and pondered for a while before asking, "I have enough experience points, so I can leave by crushing the jade token. What about you? What are you going to do?" You want to leave this place?" "Yes, I still have things to do. I can't stay here for too long." She nodded. Chapter 221. Seeing this, Fengjiu patted him on the shoulder and said, "Take care, we'll meet again." You too." Fatty grinned and said, "Xiaojiu, nice to meet you. Take this, you might need it." She smiled at him and threw a bottle of medicine to him. "What's this?" Fatty asked curiously and opened it to take a look. At the same time, Fengjiu had already crushed the white jade tablet. An array of light shot out from the jade tablet and sent her out. Fatty was left holding the bottle of medicine in his hands excitedly and opened his eyes wide in disbelief. "Hiss! It's actually a level 3 medicine." At this moment, after a flash of light, Fengjiu's figure also appeared in an open space. When she stood still, several elders surrounded her and stared at her, sizing her up. "Which sect's disciple are you from?" The 4 elders came from 3 different sects and the school of stars and clouds. When they saw that the disciple holding the jade tablet gained 1,000 experience points, they knew that he must have encountered the level 7 giant python inside. However, the disciples of the various sects who went in to train were not strong enough to deal with the level 7 giant python. Then, who killed the giant python? With doubts in their hearts, they waited here. Finally, after that person crushed the jade tablet and was sent out, they saw an unfamiliar red-clothed young man. When they first saw this young man, even the elders couldn't help but secretly praise him. What an outstanding young man! Evil and flamboyant aura, as if he was born with a noble temperament, and that handsome face with a trace of evil. This kind of person, even in their sects and schools, was extremely rare. Seeing the 4 elders staring at her and sizing her up, Fengjiu smiled and said, "I accidentally entered." The 3 sects and the teachers of the school of stars and clouds were all here. Naturally, she couldn't pretend to be one of them. Accidentally entered? The 4 elders frowned and said resolutely, "That's impossible." The training ground was not only surrounded by formations, but also a barrier. Looking at this young man, who was only a spirit master, how could he accidentally enter? "Why is it impossible?" Didn't I come out from there? Fengjiu said and was about to walk away. However, after taking 2 steps, his expression changed slightly and he broke out in cold sweat. The elders wanted to stop him, but they saw that the young man was acting strangely. The 4 of them looked at each other. In the end, it was the elder from Star Cloud who asked, "What's wrong with you?" The powerful aura that surged through her body caused her face to turn even paler. The aura that was rampaging through her meridians made her want to curse out loud. Damn it! It must be the blood of the type 7 giant python. At that moment, he didn't care about anything else and quickly sat down cross-legged to adjust the chaotic aura in his body. The 4 old men saw a strong aura surging from Shuriyan's body. His face turned pale and red. The old man from Star Cloud stroked his beard and said, as if he understood something, "The aura from him is mixed with the blood chi of the giant python. The aura in his body is surging. He must have drunk the giant python's blood." What? Drank the blood of a rank 7 giant python? That's impossible, right? Even if a Foundation establishment cultivator drank the blood of a rank 7 giant python, their body would explode and they would die. This young man is only a cultivator who just became a spirit master. If he really drank the blood of a rank 7 magical beast, his body would have exploded and he would have died. Chapter 222. The old man from the academy didn't say anything. He only stroked his beard and looked at the red-clothed youth sitting cross-legged. His wise eyes seemed to be pondering about something. Fengjiu, who was sitting cross-legged, guided the chaotic aura in her body to her dantian. The aura was fierce and strong, causing her veins to swell as if they were about to explode. The veins under her skin swelled, occasionally appearing and protruding. She was sweating all over and her face was sometimes white and sometimes red. The pain that came from her body almost made her faint. However, she knew that if she couldn't hold on, she would be done for. The 4 old men surrounded her and watched. One of them said in disbelief, "I didn't think that this youth would be able to hold on until now after drinking the blood of a level 7 giant python. However, his blood is surging. I'm afraid he won't be able to hold on." It's hard to say. The fact that this youth can hold on until now is enough to show that he's not ordinary. The old man stroked his beard and said, "Let's protect him for now. If he can hold on, his strength will definitely increase greatly." Hearing him say this, the other 3 nodded and sat down not far away to protect the red-clothed youth. As time quietly passed, one of the old men saw the red-clothed youth's spiritual energy slowly increase and couldn't help but exclaim, "Look, he's really advancing." Hiss. He's still advancing. There's no sign of him stopping at level 3. The few people were shocked. After a while, they saw that the youth's spiritual energy had once again advanced from level 4 to level 5. Why does this advancement look so easy? What is this youth's background? The few people were speechless. One had to know that spiritual energy cultivation was different from profound energy cultivation. Many cultivators were unable to break through the level of a great spiritual master and enter the level of a foundation-building cultivator. Only by becoming a foundation-building cultivator could one be considered an immortal and have a lifespan of 200 years. Among 100 great swordsmen, at most 1 or 2 would successfully advance. To enter the level of a golden core from a foundation-building cultivator was 1 in 10,000. There were some cultivators who were over 50 years old, but they were still only at the level of Great Spirit Master. Yet, this youth, who was merely in his teens, was advancing as if he were jumping on a pedal. He was advancing step by step. How could they not be extremely shocked? Under the incredulous gazes of the 4 old men, the red-clothed youth actually sat there cross-legged for 3 days and 3 nights. His strength was also increasing at a steady pace. Perhaps it was because they had been staring at him for 3 days and 3 nights, But the 4 old men were shocked by his abnormal advancement speed and were unable to regain their senses for a long time. For 3 days and 3 nights they didn't sleep or rest. They just stared at the red-clothed youth, thinking the same thing. No matter which sect this youngster was from, they had to find a way to poach him into their sect. Look, he advanced again. An old man swallowed his saliva as he stared at the red-clothed youth excitedly. His expression was like a person who had not eaten for half a month and was staring at a piece of fat meat. He wanted nothing more than to rush forward and snatch him back into the sect. He's going to attack the Great Spirit Master Realm. Chapter 2:23. As Feng Jiu's spiritual power continued to surge upward, her spiritual power instantly burst out, forming a strong spiritual power aura around her. In the next moment, the surging spiritual energy was absorbed into her body. As time passed, the spiritual energy in her body gradually calmed down and dissipated, as if the previous scene had never happened. However, her spiritual energy rank had leaped straight to the cultivation of a 3rd-stage Great Spiritual Master. Feng Jiu exhaled lightly and slowly opened her eyes. Her eyes were overflowing with joy. At this moment, she only felt that everything she saw with her naked eyes was different. Moreover, she could hear the soft chirping of insects clearly. It was as if there was a steady flow of spiritual energy circulating in her body. It was very comfortable. She looked at the 4 elders sitting in 4 different directions. Seeing them staring at her in a daze, she couldn't help but reveal a smile. Flicking her robe, she stood up from the ground and bowed to the 4 elders. She said clearly, "Thank you, seniors, for protecting me." If it weren't for the 4 elders protecting her, she wouldn't have been able to predict what would happen in these 3 days and nights. After all, if she was disturbed during her cultivation, the consequences would be unimaginable. Hearing this, the 4 elders suddenly came back to their senses. They instantly jumped up and strode towards Feng Jiu. "Young man, are you interested in joining our Gui sect? Young man, join our Qianghua sect. Our Qingqing sect is still the best. Join the College of Stars and Clouds is the best. I can let you become a specially recruited student." The 4 old men scrambled to be the first to speak, fearing that someone else would beat them to it. Hearing their words, Feng Jiu was stunned for a moment, then smiled. "Thank you, seniors, for thinking so highly of me. However, I still have matters to attend to and have no intention of joining a sect at the moment." Seeing the frown of the 4 elders, her eyes flashed and she said, "However, I have long wanted to join the College of Stars and Clouds to cultivate. I'm just waiting for the enrollment to begin." Hearing this, the other 3 elders couldn't help but feel disappointed. However, they also knew that the College of Stars and Clouds was a famous school in the Qingting Kingdom. Even if their sects wanted to compete, they couldn't compare. Many cultivators and students from all over the world hoped to enter the College of Stars and Cloud. It was normal for this young man to choose the College of Stars and Cloud. "Ha ha ha ha. Good good good. It's good that you have such thoughts." The old man from the academy laughed heartily, looking at Feng Jiu with a satisfied gaze. He took out a token from his sleeve and handed it to Feng Jiu, saying, "This is Star Cloud's star token. Take it and use this token to register at the academy in the future. With this token in hand, you can enter the academy directly and become a student of Star Cloud without having to go through the examination." Feng Jiu took the token and looked at it. He put it away with a smile and said, "Thank you, senior. This junior is Feng Jiu. May I know senior's name?" "Ah, Feng Jiu? All right, this old man will remember this name. When I return to the academy, I will definitely report and register it. My surname is Guan, and people call me Elder Guan. I am an associate academician of Star Cloud Academy." Hearing this, Feng Jiu was a little surprised. He immediately bowed respectfully and said, "Greetings, Vice Headmaster Guan. This junior will remember it." He didn't expect that the vice-headmaster of Star Cloud Academy would be the vice-headmaster. The three elders at the side were disappointed. They didn't expect such a good seedling to be snatched away by Star Cloud Academy. Sigh. Fengjiu, right? If you change your mind, you can come to Guai sect. If you join our sect, we will definitely promote you to an elite disciple. Chapter 224. Of course, the other two elders didn't stand on ceremony with Elder Guan and made their promises as well. Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled and cupped his hands. Thanks for Senior's kindness. Junior will remember Senior's words. However, I have some matters to attend to and cannot stay here for long. Seniors, Vice Headmaster Guan, Junior will take his leave first. Good. Go. Master Guan narrowed his eyes and waved his hand. He was afraid that if he stayed any longer, those three people would try to snatch him away. Therefore, he asked him to leave first. Seeing this, Fengjiu didn't hesitate and left. When the red figure disappeared from their line of sight, one of them slapped his thigh and shouted, "Ah! Look, we forgot about the important matters. We didn't even ask him how he got into the training forest, and we let him go." Hearing this, the others remembered and sighed. They were too shocked by the red-clothed youth's advancement and forgot about this matter. Now that he was gone, it was pointless to ask again. Only Elder Guan stroked his beard and looked at the direction Fengjiu left. He thought to himself, why do I feel like I was fooled by that youth? Will he really enter the School of Stars and Clouds? On the other side, Fengjiu had already reached the mountain path and let out a sigh of relief. He smiled widely and said, "Good thing I escaped quickly. Otherwise, I wouldn't know how to get away." She looked at the mountain path and it seemed to be endless. Seeing this, she couldn't help but murmur, "Only those who have entered the foundation establishment stage can fly on swords. Only those who have the Xian energy can fly on sword. Even though I have the Xian energy, I can't even fly on sword. If I can get a flying instrument, I can use it." Therefore, she could only continue to walk forward. Occasionally, she would use the cloud steps to fly. Until she saw a strange scene on the mountain path. A white horse that was as fat as a pig was slowly walking backward. A green-clothed man was sitting on the back of the horse. From time to time, he would use his legs to clamp the horse's belly and rein in the horse's reins to discuss with the fat horse. "Old White, let's go. When we reach the town ahead, I'll at most prepare a big meal for you, okay?" Chi. The horse turned its head and snorted. Fengjiu, who was coming up from behind, saw that it was not an ordinary horse because it had two bud-like horns on its head. "Senior Bai, I'm telling you, if you continue to be disobedient, then I'll hit you." The young man threatened as he took out a soft whip from his waist and was about to swing it down. However, his whip only made a sound in the air. Before it could even touch his horse, the horse stomped its hind hooves and threw the young man off the horse. The young man panicked and tried to clamp the horse's belly, but because of the strength of the swing, he fell to the ground. Hiss! "Old Bai! How dare you dump me? You wait. When we reach the town, I'll definitely sell you off." The young man stood up angrily. He felt a burning pain from his palm being scraped by the sand. When Fengjiu saw this scene, he could not help but laugh. He walked forward and patted the horse's butt. What a fat horse! It even learned how to walk backward? How strange! When the young man saw Fengjiu, he was slightly startled. "Who are you?" He pulled the horse's reins and asked cautiously. However, at this moment, the horse turned its head and stared at Fengjiu. Its eyes lit up and it actually moved closer to Fengjiu. It stuck out its tongue and was about to lick her face. Fengjiu was so frightened that she quickly retreated. Chapter 225. Whenever she dodged to the side, the horse would move to the side. The horse's head and neck leaned forward, its tongue sticking out from time to time as it tried to lick her face. The young man was stunned when he saw this. He quickly pulled on the reins and shouted, "Lao Bai, he's a man." Then, he said apologetically to Fengjiu, "Lao Bai is a little lecherous. He must have mistaken you for a girl because you're so handsome." Fengjiu's mouth twitched. She looked at the fat horse that was still struggling to get closer and asked, "What kind of horse is this? Why does it have horns?" "Lao Bai is a mutated spiritual beast. Because it looks like a horse and has dragon-like horns, it can also be called a dragon horse. Other spiritual horses run extremely fast, but Lao Bai eats a lot and is lazy, so it's so fat." The young man looked at the dragon horse helplessly and said, "I didn't want to bring it out, but my family said that they were going to slaughter it and cook it for dinner. I couldn't bear to bring it out, so I brought it out. I didn't expect it to start causing trouble halfway through." Hiss! The dragon horse called Lao Bai neighed and wagged its tail, trying to get closer to Fengjiu. Fengjiu was curious and said, "This dragon horse looks very spiritual." As she spoke, she reached out and touched the horse's head. The horse neighed and lay down on the ground, kicking its hooves in the air with an excited look on its face. Fengjiu's mouth twitched when she saw this. She thought to herself, "It's really a lecherous horse. My name is Bai Xiao. What about you?" Fengjiu glanced at her and said, "We've just met by chance. Why do you ask for my name?" As she spoke, she cupped her hands and continued walking forward. She was using the cloud tray steps, so her walking speed was very fast. In the blink of an eye, she was 50 meters away. Hiss! Lao Bai, who had fallen on the ground, neighed and leaped up from the ground when he saw Fengjiu leave. He kicked his hooves and chased after her. "Old Bai, wait, I haven't gotten on the horse yet!" Bai Xiao exclaimed as he was dragged along by the reins. Fengjiu, who heard the commotion behind her, turned around to take a glance. Black lines appeared on her forehead, and she immediately sped up. However, what she did not expect was that Lao Bai, who looked as fat as a pig, was not careless at all when he ran. He actually chased her all the way and was not shaken off by her. Seeing that she was about to reach the town, she gradually slowed down and exhaled softly. She glanced back and simply stopped. "Phew! It's so bumpy." Bai Xiao fell from the horse's back and sat on the ground, panting. She could only glare at Lao Bai, who was lying on the red-clothed youth fawningly. Fengjiu was also staring at this lecherous horse that was drooling at her. How should she put it? This dragon horse was not strong. Instead, it was full of fat. There was no beauty in it at all. Even though it could run fast, she really did not want such a fat horse to follow her. "Hey, take care of your horse. Don't follow me anymore." She looked at the youth on the ground and said. As soon as she finished speaking, her red figure flashed and quickly entered the town gate. In a flash, she disappeared into the crowd. Lao Bai was stunned for a moment. He neighed and quickly stood up. He kicked his hooves and continued to chase after her. Chapter 226. On the other side, Fengjiu entered the inn and shouted, "Waiter, give me some of your signature dishes and a jug of wine." "Okay." The waiter, who was greeting the guests, answered loudly and walked over with a jug of water in his hand. "Dear guest, please have a cup of tea first. The dishes will be served soon." Fengjiu was originally sitting by the window on the first floor. However, when she casually glanced outside, she saw the fat horse looking left and right to find her. She was so scared that she quickly moved back. Until the fat horse passed by outside, she sighed softly and muttered, "This is so strange. Why is it following me all the way?" She picked up the teacup and gently blew on the steaming tea. As she was drinking, she heard a sound coming from the window. She turned her head and immediately cried out, "Wah!" The teacup in her hand slipped and fell on the table, spilling tea all over the table. She saw that Lao Bai had come to the window unknowingly. It stuck its head out and breathed 2 puffs of air at her. It even grinned and wagged its tail from time to time, as if to say, "Look, I found you again. It's really haunting me." She stared blankly. She saw that the fat horse's 2 front hooves leaped forward and actually stopped at the window. It just stared at her like that, causing the surrounding people to laugh. Whose horse is this? It's so fat. This horse even has horns on its head. It doesn't look like an ordinary horse. Look at this horse, it even knows how to crawl on the window. Hearing the laughter of the crowd, the innkeeper ran over angrily. Whose horse is this? How can we do business here? Take it away, take it away. Then, he said apologetically to Fengjiu, Dear guest, I'm so sorry. I don't know whose horse ran out and disturbed you. How about this? Please go to the 2nd floor and sit down. No need, no need. I'll sit here. Fengjiu waved her hand and said. A young man ran over from the crowd and shouted, It's my horse! It's my horse! The young man ran over while panting. He hurriedly pulled the horse back and scolded angrily, I'm so angry! Old Bai! I will definitely sell you. I'll buy it. Fengjiu played with the cup on the table as he looked at the man and horse. While what? The young man was taken aback. She curled her lips and said, I said I'm buying it. How much are you selling it for? Didn't he want to sell it? Just sell it to me. This. The young man scratched his head and said embarrassedly, Actually, I was just scolding it. I didn't want to sell it. This horse obviously likes me very much. Look, it has been chasing me all the way. Since you can't tame it, why don't you sell it to me? She looked at the fat horse lying on the window and raised her eyebrows. Her lips curled into a devilish smile. Old Bai, don't you agree? You want to follow me too, right? Hiss. Old Bai raised his head and neighed. He raised his hind leg and kicked at the young man. Seeing this, Bai Xiao quickly retreated. Her face was red, either from embarrassment or anger. She angrily slapped the horse's butt and scolded, Old Bai! You're a guy who forgets his friends when he's in love. He's a man, not a woman. Why are you so agitated? Seeing this scene, Fengjiu couldn't help but laugh and said, Hey, I didn't like it at first, but now I like it more and more. What should I do? Chapter 227. Bai Xiao face-bombed and turned her head away. She could not bear to watch any longer. She muttered, This is so embarrassing. It was his horse, but it wagged its tail to please the young man in red. It was his horse, but it refused to let him ride it. It even kicked him and chased after the young man in red. He had already said that the young man in red was a man, but it still kept moving forward. Since when did Lao Bai's taste change to that of both men and women? Ha ha ha, this horse is really interesting. It seems like it can understand human language. That's right. Although it's a little fat, it's still quite funny. If the young man in red didn't say anything, I would have thought that the horse was his. Look, that horse is still moving forward. Don't tell me it wants to kiss the young man? Ha! As soon as the laughter was heard, everyone inside and outside laughed loudly because such a scene was really quite rare. At this moment, Bai Xiao came in from outside. She walked to Fengjiu's table and sat down. She said, Lao Bai is not a commodity. I can sell it to you. However, since Lao Bai likes you, I can give it to you. Fengjiu raised his eyebrows when he heard this. Give it to me? Yes. Bai Xiao nodded and said, I've had Lao Bai for many years. This fellow usually does nothing but eat and sleep. I had no choice but to bring it out. I can tell that Lao Bai likes you very much, so I can give it to you. In that case, thank you very much. She laughed heartily. She took 2 glasses and poured 2 glasses of wine. This is to you. Bai Xiao took a sip and put down the glass. I'm not used to drinking. Then let's eat, Fengjiu said with a smile. He shouted, Waiter, give me 2 more dishes and a bowl of soup. Okay. The waiter answered and quickly went to prepare the dishes. Can you tell me your name now? Bai Xiao looked at Fengjiu and asked. Fengjiu smiled and said, My name is Fengjiu. My name is Bai Xiao. I told you before. He smiled and paused for a moment before continuing. Actually, Old Bai is very easy to raise. You just have to prepare 5 kilograms of small fish or prawns for every meal. Cough cough. Upon hearing this, Feng Jiu choked on the wine. He patted his chest and asked in astonishment, "What did you say? You don't feed it grass, but fish and prawns?" Nodding his head, Bai Shao said with a straight face, "Yes, Old White is not an ordinary horse. He is a dragon horse and a mutated spirit beast. Therefore, he is not a vegetarian, he only eats meat." Fish and prawns? That's eating better than a human's. No wonder he's so fat. She glanced at Lao Bai, who was leaning against the window and listening to their conversation. She wondered if she had found trouble for herself. After the meal, Feng Jiu paid the bill and went outside. He said to Bai Shao, "I still have things to do, so I'll take my leave first. If fate wills it, we'll meet again. I'll treat you to a good meal then." "Okay. Take care." Bai Shao cupped his hands and looked at Old White, who did not even look at him. He shook his head and said to Feng Jiu, "I'll have to trouble you to take care of Old White in the future." He, don't worry. I'll train him well." She smiled wickedly and glanced at Old White, who was wagging his tail. Chapter 228. When Feng Jiu saw Lao Bai lower his head and use his nostrils to lift the girl's skirt, he covered his eyes and silently turned his head away. This Lao Bai has already become a spirit, ah! A sharp cry suddenly sounded out. The girl in the pink dress used her hand to press down her skirt that was blown up by the wind as she turned around with a flushed face. On the other hand, right when Feng Jiu was about to get off her horse and apologize, Senior White's large tongue swept out and actually licked the young woman's face, causing her face to be covered in saliva, and it terrified the young woman to the point her beautiful face turned pale and was stunned. When Feng Jiu saw this scene, the corner of his mouth twitched and several black lines appeared on his forehead. Why is this guy so perverted? "Young miss." A young servant girl hurriedly supported the girl and used a handkerchief to wipe away the saliva on her face. The man at the side seemed to have just recovered from his shock. He looked at the fat horse that was lazily glancing at him and scolded angrily. "Audacious beast." The man angrily cursed. At the same time, he waved his fist towards Lao Bai's face. However, he did not expect that his fist would be blocked by a hand. "Young master, please don't be angry." Feng Jiu, who had dismounted, blocked the man's fist with one hand and apologetically said, "I'm truly sorry. My horse is a bit perverted. It definitely did not intend to take liberties with the young miss. I hope young master and young miss will not take offense." "Perverted? Humph. I think you're the one who's perverted. It must be you who instigated your spirit beast to do such a shameless thing," the man sternly shouted. At the same time, he withdrew his blocked fist. His sharp gaze stared straight at the handsome red-clothed Feng Jiu. "Spirit beast?" When the surrounding people heard these two words, they began to size up the fat horse. When they saw the 2 horns on its head, they could not help but whisper to each other. "This horse is different from ordinary ones. Is it really a spirit beast? I heard that spirit beasts are quite valuable. Moreover, spirit beasts that can be used as mounts have all been tamed by beast tamers. However, this spirit beast is a bit too fat. From the looks of it, I don't even know if it can run. I know. Ordinary people like us who eat the meat of spirit beasts will become stronger and stronger. Immortal cultivators can absorb spiritual energy after eating it. It's good stuff." Hearing the crowd's words, Feng Jiu smiled. Seeing that the man was staring at him with an unfriendly expression, he smiled and looked at the beautiful girl whose face had turned pale from fright. Coming up to her, his handsome face revealed a devilish and charming smile. His eyes overflowed with moving brilliance as he gently gazed at her. "Miss, I'm really sorry. It's all my fault for not taking good care of my mount and causing you to be frightened." Her voice didn't have the gentleness of a woman, nor the toughness of a man. On the contrary, it was like a pool of clear water, clear and warm, with a trace of hoarseness and charm. When one heard it, it was like a fine feather tickling one's ear, and it numbed one's heart. The dainty young girl looked at the red-clothed young man in front of her, and saw his clear eyes overflowing with a moving brilliance as he stared at her. That pair of eyes that seemed to be able to speak caused her pretty face to turn red and her heart to beat irregularly. She then nervously lowered her head. It's fine." The young girl's gentle voice carried a trace of nervousness and shyness. However, she couldn't help but want to raise her head to look at the handsome red-clothed young man in front of her. Chapter 229. Miss is not only adorable, but also kind and magnanimous enough to not bicker with this mount of mine. This one thanks you. She smiled and cupped her hands in greeting. Seeing the young girl's beautiful face, as red as an apple, the smile in her eyes deepened. She held Lao Bai's hand and said, "If that's the case, this one will take her leave first." "Oh, okay. Take care, young master." The young girl was captivated by Fengjiu's words and electrifying eyes. She was practically responding to Fengjiu's words. When he saw the red-clothed youth apologize and make amends, the man at the side couldn't say anything else. After all, even his cousin didn't say anything, so there was no need to say anything about him. If he continued to look for trouble with the youth, then it would seem that he was intentionally going against the youth. It was only when Fengjiu mounted the horse and rode Lao Bai out of the town gate that the young girl came back to her senses. "I forgot to ask that young master's name." Seeing her regretful face, the man's face darkened. He flung his sleeve and said, "Let's go back." 2 days later, Fengjiu held White's hand and entered the Six Paths city's gate. When she saw the bustling scene inside the city, she couldn't help but sigh in her heart. This is indeed a Tier 6 nation. The buildings and shops in this city are incomparable to the imperial city of glorious Sun Empire. Have you heard? The famous ghost doctor recently came to our Six Paths city. It is said that the city lord personally received her. Impossible. I heard that there was an accident at the medicine fair. The ghost doctor was kidnapped by people from the Yen Palace. I heard that she was released long ago. Otherwise, why would those medicines appear everywhere recently? There are not many medicines appearing in the auction recently, but every bottle is a treasure among treasures. It is said that our city lord was lucky enough to buy a bottle of the ghost doctor's medicine. After taking the medicine, the city lord finally broke through the bottleneck that he had been unable to break through. This matter has spread throughout the upper-class families. I only heard about it from my cousin who works in the city lord's mansion. Are you serious? It's that powerful? Of course, let me tell you, this ghost doctor's medicine is said to be more powerful than the alchemist's immortal pills, and you can't buy it even if you have money. Didn't you see that there are a lot of outsiders coming to our Six Paths city these 2 days? They must have come for the ghost doctor after receiving the news. Fengjiu raised his eyebrows slightly when he heard the conversation between the people at the tea stall. A faint light flashed in his eyes as he led Lao Bai forward. After walking for a while, she stopped in front of an inn called Yunshang. The waiter inside quickly came out to welcome her. "A guest has arrived." The waiter shouted inside as he took the reins from Fengjiu. He said, "Guest, you have come at the right time. Our inn has a superior room on the 2nd floor. The lighting is excellent." "Yes." She tossed a gold coin to the waiter and instructed, "Prepare 10 caddies of small fish and prawns for my horse. The rest is yours." The waiter immediately smiled and said, "Thank you, guest. Rest assured, this little one will take good care of guest's mount." The waiter who came out from behind led her to the counter. After paying, he brought her to the 2nd floor. After instructing the waiter to prepare hot water, she took a bath and changed her red clothes into a white robe. Her black hair was tied up high, and she restrained her arrogance and evil charm, becoming a graceful noble young master. Seeing that it was still early, she sat cross-legged on the bed and meditated until evening. When the sky gradually darkened, she got up and walked out of the inn. She planned to stroll around the night scene of Six Paths City and look for food. Chapter 230. In a house, Hui Lang hurried to the backyard. Seeing his master sitting there drinking tea, he stepped forward and bowed. Master, according to this subordinate's investigation, the ghost doctor in this Six Paths City is most likely a fake. The Yama Lord looked at him and said, "What do you mean? The time of appearance is wrong. The ghost doctor in Six Paths City appeared 7 days ago, but at that time, he was still in our building. So this ghost doctor is a fake. Since he is a fake, we should find a chance to expose him," the Yama Lord said in a low voice. After a pause, he asked, "Is there any news about him from the black market?" Grey Wolf stared blankly for a moment before realizing that his master was referring to the ghost doctor. Only then did he reply, "There's no news at the moment." However, the attendant by the ghost doctor's side heard the news about the ghost doctor and came over with the people from the black market. No news about him? Where did she go to hide? The Yama Lord thought in his heart. His fingers tapped on the stone table. His lips were pursed and his eyebrows were slightly furrowed. Ing Yi and Hui Lang looked at each other and lowered their heads at the same time. Their master did not care about the matters in the Hall of Hell. As soon as he heard about the ghost doctor, he came over. If the other party was a woman, they would be very happy. However, the ghost doctor was a man, and a disfigured one at that. How could they be happy? Hui Lang thought for a moment and looked up at the Yama Lord. He carefully suggested, "Master, the night view of Six Paths City is amazing. Why don't we go out for a walk?" The Yama Lord responded. He brushed his robe and walked out. Ing Yi and Hui Lang saw this and quickly followed behind. As night fell, the shops and inns on both sides of the street lit up one after another. The lights lit up the entire dark night like stars in the night sky, dazzling and enchanting. On the bustling streets there were groups of close friends, pairs of men and women, and children running and playing on the street. All of them had joyful smiles on their faces. The hawkers' cries and the waiters' greetings mixed with the numerous voices, forming a lively and bustling scene. At an inconspicuous stall on the side of this lively street, Feng Jiu, who was dressed in a white robe, was eating a bowl of spicy noodles. It was so spicy that sweat oozed out of her forehead. Her red lips were also scalded red by the spicy oil. It was very moving. The men who were also eating noodles and the two women at the other table couldn't help but stare at her in a daze. "Boss, another bowl!" She shouted and ate the noodles. She pushed the remaining spicy soup to the side, poured a cup of water and drank it. Originally, she only wanted to try a bowl of the famous noodles. Who knew that after one bowl, she would be tempted by the spicy oil and ordered another bowl. "Come. Hot noodles with oil, young master, be careful." The middle-aged man shouted and brought another bowl. Feng Jiu moved her chopsticks and ate again. The people next to her saw that she was not afraid of spicy food and could not help but swallow and shout, "Boss, I want another bowl too. I want another bowl too." Seeing this, the boss laughed so hard that his eyes couldn't be seen. He hurriedly served the dishes to everyone. Finally, he sent a plate of side dishes to Feng Nine. "This is a side dish made by us. Please have a taste." "Okay, thank you." Chapter 231. She secretly covered half of her face with her hands and leaned on the table to look at the man in the black robe, who stood out like a crane in a flock of chickens. That aura, that pressure, who else could it be but the Yama Lord? Behind him were Ing Yi and Hui Lang. But why did they come to Six Paths City? Could it be that they heard that the ghost doctor was here, so they came to catch her? TSK. That's too unkind. At this time, She didn't even think about who was the unkind one. She wanted to run away and even stole the 1,000-year-old ginseng. That's not it. I don't think he's seen my face before. At this time, she remembered that the scars on her face were messy all over, and she had been applying ointment on her face. None of them had seen her face after she recovered. Even if she stood in front of them now, they probably wouldn't be able to recognize her, right? Thinking of this, she grinned and coughed lightly. She sat up straight and continued to eat her noodles. Master, this oil noodles is a specialty of Six Paths City. Master, do you want to try it? Hui Lang pointed at the stall full of people and asked the Yama Lord in front of him. The Yama Lord was about to shake his head when he saw the white-clothed youth who was eating his noodles. For some reason, he walked over and sat down opposite the white-clothed youth. Fengjiu, who was eating her noodles, wanted to quickly finish eating and leave. After all, the Yama Lord's eyes were very sharp. It was fine if she didn't meet him, but if she did, she didn't know if she would be recognized. So, she didn't even raise her head to look at him. Who knew, when she was halfway through eating, she saw a person sitting opposite her. Just based on his aura, she didn't need to raise her head to know that it was the Yama Lord. Could it be that he recognized me? That's impossible, right? Or does he also want to eat the oil noodles? TSK. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. She met him everywhere. Boss, give me a bowl of noodles with oil. Grey Wolf shouted as he stood behind his master with Ying Yi. Yes, yes. When the owner saw the imposing manner of the three people, he couldn't help but feel a little frightened. He hurriedly responded and served a bowl of piping hot noodles with oil. After that, he said, Sir, be careful not to burn your mouth. The Yama Lord frowned and looked at the bowl of oily red noodles in front of him. He then looked at the young man who was slurping down the noodles. He paused and asked, Is it delicious? There was a trace of doubt in his deep voice. He looked at the young man who kept his head down and saw that he hadn't raised his head since he sat down. Could it be that he didn't dare to see him? Could it really be her? When he thought of this, his mood suddenly improved. When his deep gaze looked at the young man's slightly swollen lips, he couldn't help but smile. However, Hui Lang, who couldn't see the situation clearly, thought that the Yama Lord was asking him. So, he took a step forward and said with a grin, Master, the oil noodles have to be spicy to taste good. You'll know once you try it. But be careful not to burn it. This spicy oil is very. Before he finished speaking, he saw his master's cold gaze sweep over him. He was a little confused. He paused and asked carefully, Master, what's wrong? Ying Yi, who was standing behind the Yama Lord, glanced at Hui Lang and rolled his eyes speechlessly. His master was clearly asking the young man in white. When was he asking him? Why did he go up and answer him? He was simply a rash person who didn't know how to read the situation. Boss, the bill. Chapter 232. When the King of Hell saw the young man raise his head, he thought that he would see the disfigured face of the young man. However, he did not expect to see such a beautiful and seductive face. The youth was clearly wearing a white robe, but he had a seductive and enchanting aura about him. His slightly raised eyebrows, his half-squinted eyes, his smooth and creamy cheeks, and his slightly swollen but red lips, all of them exuded a seductive and enchanting aura. This was a charming youth. He was already so enchanting even before he grew up. In a few more years, his charm would be irresistible to both men and women. Looking at the youth, there was a faint admiration in his eyes, but his heart was heavy with disappointment. It wasn't her. Fengjiu looked straight at the Yama Lord's eyes, because she knew that if she flinched or avoided his gaze, he would definitely notice. Therefore, she generously met his gaze and let him look at her. Unsurprisingly, when she saw the light in his deep black eyes, the disappointment that flashed through his eyes was reflected in her eyes. She threw a silver coin to the owner, who was quickly walking over, and said with a smile, Keep the change, I'll give it to this young master as well. After saying that, she glanced at the Yama Lord with a smile, and turned to walk away. Thank you, young master, thank you, young master. The owner took the silver coin and thanked her, then gave the Yama Lord a side dish. Young master, if it's not enough, there's more. Eat as much as you want. Only then did he leave. At this time, the Yama Lord's deep eyes were half squinted, and his gaze fell on the white figure. No one knew what he was thinking. Watching the white figure gradually walk away, his eyes suddenly shot out a ray of light, and he suddenly stood up. Damn it! This woman! She actually dared to trick him. Seeing their master get up and chase after the youth, Hui Lang was stunned for a moment and asked, Master, what are you doing? Why are you chasing after the youth? Hurry up, don't ask so many questions. Yi shouted and hurriedly followed. As soon as Fengzhu blended into the crowd, he quickened his pace and disappeared from the Yama Lord's sight. The Yama Lord chased after him, only to find that the figure had disappeared without a trace. Immediately, he went forward to search. Hui Lang and Yi were chasing after him. Seeing that their master was actually chasing after that strange young man, leaving them behind, Hui Lang couldn't help but complain as he chased after him. Master, why have your preferences become so strange recently? Although that young man looked quite devilish, he was still a man after all. Could it be that master was really bent by that brat, the ghost doctor? Now that you see a handsome young man, you can't help but want to kidnap him? Hearing this, Yi glared at him. Don't talk nonsense. If master hears this, you'll suffer. I am also telling the truth. Master, Hui Lang's face was slightly pale, and he looked embarrassedly at his master who had suddenly appeared. For a moment, the smile on his face was somewhat stiff. The Yama Lord glanced at him, and his low voice was cold as he said, Bent? Master, please forgive me. Hui Lang knelt down on one knee, cold sweat dripping down his body, and said in a trembling voice, Actually, this subordinate said, this subordinate was bent by Yi. Hearing this, Yi was shocked. He glared and kicked him. What nonsense are you talking about? Chapter 233. The Yama Lord glanced at the two of them and said in a low and magnetic voice, I don't care who turned who gay. Now go and find that person. The two of them hurriedly asked, Master wants to find that young man? That's right. The Yama Lord replied in a low voice. He paused and looked at the two of them before saying, She is the ghost doctor. What? The two of them were shocked and exclaimed at the same time. Ghost doctor? That white-robed young man? Is this for real? How did Master recognize her? Master didn't recognize the wrong person, right? That white-robed young man, how could he be the ghost doctor? Hui Lang braced himself and asked. It was hard to believe that the disfigured young man was the same person as the handsome white-robed young man. The Yama Lord glanced at him coldly. Yi saw this and immediately said, This subordinate will go and find her immediately. He quickly left after saying that. Your subordinate will go and look for him as well. I will definitely find him, Grey Wolf hurriedly said. He didn't dare to ask any more questions and quickly left. The Yama Lord stood with his hands behind his back and looked at the crowd with his deep eyes. He paused for a moment and then walked into the street and blended into the crowd. At this time, the Yama Lord and the others didn't know that the person they were looking for was sitting under a table a few meters away from them and had heard their word. Strange, how did he recognize her? Fengzhu touched her face and couldn't understand. He hadn't seen her face in perfect condition, so how could he recognize her after she recovered her looks? After sitting under the stall for a while, she came out. After looking around, she quickly went to the inn. After searching for an entire night, Hui Lang and Yi still couldn't find any trace of Fengzhu. After all, there were millions of people in Six Paths City, and the city was divided into many districts. Each district had at least hundreds of thousands of people. It was easier said than done to find the whereabouts of one person among hundreds of thousands of people. When dawn broke, the two of them returned to the courtyard and reported to their master in the main house. "Master, your subordinates have searched the entire night, but there was no news of the ghost doctor." "There's no need to look." The voice of the Yama Lord came from the house. "I have a way to make her appear on her own." Hearing this, Hui Lang and Ing Yi looked at each other. Let the ghost doctor appear herself? That's impossible, right? He was trying his best to avoid them, so why would he appear on his own? However, their master had never done anything that he wasn't confident in. Could it be that there was really a way to make the ghost doctor appear herself? At this time, Feng Jiu had entered the space to cultivate for a night. When he came out, his whole body felt refreshed. Her spiritual power cultivation was already at the level of a great spirit master, so she had to make preparations to break through to the foundation establishment stage. Although there were medicines that could help her advance, in order to enter the foundation establishment stage, she still needed a foundation establishment pill. However, she hadn't come into contact with this world's medicinal pills. If she wanted to refine a foundation establishment pill, she would need a lot of things. Originally, she thought that since Six Paths City was an extremely prosperous town, she could buy all the things she needed to refine pills here. However, now that she was being targeted by the Yama Lord, just thinking about it gave her a headache. Why was this Yama Lord so persistent? After changing into a red robe, she went out and walked into a high-end shop called Treasure Pavilion. "Young master, please come in. If you see anything you like, the price is negotiable," the shopkeeper said with a smile as he led Feng Jiu inside. Chapter 234. Yes, I'll show it to young master. The shopkeeper smiled and went to the counter to take out a triangular cauldron and placed it in front of Feng Jiu. "Young master, please take a look. This is a pill cauldron, a 9th-tier spirit tool. It's most suitable for beginners." Feng Jiu picked up the triangular cauldron that looked like an incense cauldron and asked, "This thing can be used to refine pills?" Hearing this, the shopkeeper was stunned and the smile on his face froze. He looked at Feng Jiu and said, "Young master, this is a grade 9 spirit weapon. You can use it as long as you insert spirit energy into it. Once you insert spirit energy into it, the small cauldron will become bigger and can be used to refine pills." 9th tier? 9th tier seems to be the lowest tier, right? Are there any better ones? "Young master, take a look at this. This is a 7th tier pill cauldron. This is the work of a master refiner. Whether its appearance or quality, it's above average. This is a twin dragon cauldron, a 6th tier pill cauldron. It's also a master refiner's work. Young master can take a look at which one you like." The shopkeeper placed the small pill cauldrons on the counter for Feng Jiu to choose from. She picked up the pill cauldron and looked at it, asking, "What's the price of this 6th tier cauldron?" This is a 6th tier spirit tool. The price is 88,888 gold coins. If young master really wants it, I can reduce the price to 88,888 gold coins. So expensive? Feng Jiu looked at the shopkeeper in shock. Just this little cauldron costs 88,880 gold coins? This is daylight robbery. The shopkeeper's mouth twitched. "Young master, this isn't an incense cauldron. This is a pill cauldron, a spirit tool. 88,800 gold coins for a 6th tier cauldron is a very fair price." Feng Jiu shook his head. "It's too expensive, I can't afford it. 100 silver coins is equivalent to 1 gold coin. 80,000 gold coins, how many silver coins would that be? This thing is too expensive." Hearing this, the shopkeeper was speechless for a moment, because he had never met such a customer. After all, he saw that this red-clothed young master's clothes and bearing were extraordinary. He had the appearance of an elegant young master. He originally thought that this young master was a noble who did not lack money. Who would have thought? Fengjiu's eyes flickered as he smiled and asked, "Shopkeeper, do you sell that kind of refining book?" This thing was so expensive. If he could refine it himself, not only would he be able to save a lot of money, he could also make money by refining equipment. Thinking about it, it was not bad. The shopkeeper was stunned for a moment. After glancing at Fengjiu, he said, "Someone has put a book here for sale. It only costs 100 gold coins. Take a look." He took out a shabby book from the cabinet and handed it over. Fengjiu took the book and flipped through it. Seeing that everything was recorded inside, he looked at the shopkeeper. "This old book costs 100 gold coins? 50 gold coins, I'll buy it." The corners of the shopkeeper's mouth twitched and he said, "I say, young master, you bargained too ruthlessly, right? How are we going to do business if you cut it in half the moment you open your mouth? How about this? If you really want it, take it for 80 gold coins. If you don't have 80 gold coins, I won't sell it." Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled and straightforwardly took out the money to buy it. After putting away the book, he turned around and walked out. However, just as she walked out of the shop, she saw a familiar figure. When she saw that figure, her eyes lit up and revealed a smile. She ran towards that person and shouted at the same time, "Uncle!" Chapter 235. He turned around and saw the red figure running towards him. His mood inexplicably soared, but the expression on his face was full of doubt and indifference. "You are." "It's me. Ghost." She blinked at him, her face full of joy. "Uncle, why are you here?" Hearing this, Ling Mo-hun showed a timely look of astonishment. "You are the ghost doctor?" He lowered his voice and looked around. "Your face, it's cured. How is it? Isn't it handsome beyond compare?" she said with a narcissistic smile. Ling Mo-han's deep gaze fell on her snow-white skin, taking in her beautiful face. His eyes flashed with a smile, and he said meaningfully, "Yes, it's very stunning." Fengjiu looked around and said, "Someone is looking for me. It's not safe on the street, let's find a place to sit and talk. I'll treat you to a meal, how about it?" "Okay." He nodded in response, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. "Then let's go. There's a restaurant in front," Fengjiu said, and led him to the restaurant in front. After the two of them left, Hui Lang and Ying Yi, who came out from the shadows, widened their eyes, their faces full of disbelief. Hui Lang murmured, "Master said that there was a way to make the ghost doctor appear on her own. I didn't expect that he would really be able to make the ghost doctor appear on her own." Ying Yi was speechless and said, "Master is too black-bellied. He actually thought of this method. If the ghost doctor was sold, she would still help Master count the money." Thinking of his master's serious and cold indifferent expression, Ying Yi despised him in his heart. Master must have been overjoyed at that time, yet he still pretended to be stunned and surprised. "Should we follow them and take a look?" Hui Lang elbowed Ying Yi and asked. "Follow them?" Ying Yi glanced at him. "Aren't you afraid of ruining Master's plans?" Hearing this, Hui Lang stopped thinking. "Then let's go back first?" "Yes, let's go. That ghost doctor is very clever. If we follow them, we will definitely be discovered. Let's go back and wait for the Master's news," Ying Yi said and left with him. On the other side, Fengjiu and Ling Mo-hun came to the restaurant and sat down. After ordering a few dishes, she asked, "Uncle, don't you need to go back to the College of Stars and Clouds? Why is he in Six Paths City?" Ling Mo-hun poured the wine and said, "Although I am a mentor of Xingyun, I have special privileges. I don't have to stay in the academy all the time." He poured her a cup of wine and asked, "You said that someone is looking for you. Could it be someone from Yandian?" "It's them. That Yama Lord is like a lingering spirit. I've already escaped, but he still chased me all the way here. I can't believe I met him here again. Fortunately, I escaped again," she said proudly. "It's not that easy to find someone in Six Paths City, even if he's the Lord of Yen Hall. Lingering spirit? Ling Mohan narrowed his eyes and smiled slightly. It's said that this Yama Lord is very mysterious. Many people have not seen his true face. You've been captured for so long, did you have the chance to see him? I did see him. You don't say, he's really drool-worthy. However, it's too dangerous. We can only look at him from afar. She sighed and shook her head, her face full of regret. Chapter 236. He narrowed his eyes and took a sip of wine. His low and deep voice rang out unhurriedly. Seeing that you were able to make it out alive from the Yama Palace, the Yama Lord must have not mistreated you. Upon hearing this, Fengjiu glanced at him and saw that his beard covered most of his face. She couldn't see his face clearly. She couldn't help but look at his face, sizing him up. Looking at his somewhat familiar face, her heart suddenly skipped a beat. The smile on her lips slightly froze, but her tone was still as lazy as before. With a bit of curiosity, she asked, "Uncle, how old are you? Don't you feel hot with such a big beard?" Ling Mohan looked up and glanced at her. "I'm used to it." "You're used to it?" She smiled and poured wine for him. Come. Let's drink. It's rare to see you here. By the way, Uncle, what are you doing in Sixpath City? I'm here to do something. Seeing that she picked up the wine glass and drank, he frowned and said, "Don't drink on an empty stomach. Eat some food." As he spoke, he put some food in her bowl. Looking at him being overly enthusiastic, Fengjiu nodded awkwardly. Okay. The two of them ate quietly and exchanged a few words from time to time. Ling Mohan didn't seem to treat himself as an outsider and kept putting food in her bowl from time to time. "Eat more." Looking at the small mountain of food in her bowl and seeing that he was putting more food in her bowl, she hurriedly stopped him. "Uncle, don't help me anymore. Look, there's so much food. I can't finish it." Hearing this, Ling Mohan noticed that the food in her bowl had indeed piled up like a small mountain. He couldn't help but cough lightly and looked away uncomfortably. Then, he started eating. Seeing this scene, Fengjiu smiled and narrowed her eyes. She turned her eyes and said, "Uncle, are you familiar with Sixpath City? I want to buy some materials for refining weapons later. Can you take me to have a look?" "Sure." He nodded and said. Her eyes lit up and she immediately said, "Okay, we'll go after we finish eating." Seeing the light in her eyes, Ling Mohan couldn't help but ask, "Aren't you afraid of meeting those people from Yandian who are looking for you? Isn't there an uncle here?" She looked at him with a smile and said, "Uncle, you won't just watch me get taken away, right?" Ling Mohan did not respond, but after wiping the corners of his mouth, he said, "Let's go." As soon as his voice fell, he walked out. Fengjiu stood up and looked at the figure walking in front of him. His eyes moved slightly and then he quickly followed. After paying the bill downstairs, they were led by Ling Mohan to a high-end commercial building with two shops. Looking at the 3-story building and the high-class facade, her gaze fell on the 3 words in the middle. 100 Treasures Tower? Uncle, are the things here very expensive? I can't afford anything too expensive. Hearing this, Ling Mohan glanced at her and then walked in. "Come in and take a look." When Fengjiu came in, she realized that the things in the treasure house were like ants compared to this 100 Treasures Tower. The difference was too big. "Shopkeeper, how much is this tripod?" Chapter 237. This is a 4th-grade spiritual weapon, worth 428,000 gold coins. The shopkeeper said from the side, glanced at the two of them, and asked, "What kind of spiritual weapon is young master looking for? This old man can introduce it to young master." Hearing the price, Fengjiu immediately retracted her gaze, looked at the shopkeeper and said, "I want to buy some golden steel, I wonder if you have it here?" "Yes, young master, please wait a moment." The shopkeeper called a person and said. Not long after, the person brought a large piece of golden steel. Young master, do you think this is enough? If not, there is more behind. How much is this? She looked at the golden steel. It looked no different from ordinary iron. The shopkeeper said with a smile, Hee, this is not something expensive, this large piece only costs 10 gold coins. Hearing this, Fengjiu came to the side, lowered her voice and asked, Uncle, is this right? Ling Mohan glanced at her and asked, You plan to buy this to learn how to refine weapons? Yes. I originally wanted to buy a pill furnace, but it is too expensive, I can't afford it, so I want to learn and see if I can refine one myself. How about it? My idea is good, right? Looking at her proud appearance, he secretly shook his head, went to the counter, pointed at a pill furnace and said to the shopkeeper, Take this out and give it to her. Okay. The shopkeeper smiled and was about to take out the pill furnace when he heard the voice of the red-clothed youth. No need, I will buy it and learn how to refine weapons, I don't believe that I can't refine one. The shopkeeper smiled and said, refining weapons is not as easy as it sounds. If you want to refine a 4th-grade pill furnace, you can't refine it without 10 years of experience. Fengjiu choked and glanced at the words below the pill furnace. 1st-grade spiritual weapon, price, 2,800,000 gold coins. Uncle, this is so expensive, I can't afford it. His deep gaze swept past her body as he said, This 100 treasures tower can be bartered with items. I don't have anything valuable to barter with, but uncle, let's talk about it. She leaned closer to him, lowered her voice, and said with a smile, Since we're so familiar with each other, can you lend me some? Looking at the charming face in front of him, his heart skipped a beat. His breathing was slightly chaotic as he looked away. He forcefully suppressed the urge to pull her into his arms. At this moment, his low voice was slightly hoarse. If you lend it to me, you have to pay interest. Fengjiu's eyes flashed as he took in his expression. He smiled and said, Interest is interest. Thus, Fengjiu took the purple crystal card he gave him and bought a bunch of things. After putting them into the space, the smile on his face couldn't help but rise. Uncle, let's go, she said with a smile. However, in the next moment, her expression changed slightly. Hiss. Seeing her holding her stomach with an ugly expression, he frowned and asked, What's wrong? My stomach hurts. She frowned with an ugly expression and looked at the shopkeeper. Shopkeeper, do you have a toilet here? The shopkeeper was also stunned for a moment, then nodded. Yes, it's at the back. She looked at Ling Mohan and said with a frown, Uncle, I think I ate something bad just now. I'll go to the toilet, can you wait for me here? Go ahead, Ling Mohan said as he watched her trot towards the back. Chapter 238. Looking at the empty latrine, Ling Mohan's face darkened. His deep eyes narrowed, revealing a dangerous aura. Good. Very good. This time, you actually managed to slip away right under my nose. You've got guts. His voice sounded like he was gnashing his teeth in anger. Come to think of it, he appeared as Ling Mohan. Who would have thought that she would notice that something was wrong in less than half a day? He didn't mind being taken advantage of, but the problem was that the woman actually ran away again. His face darkened as he stroked the beard on his chin. How did she recognize him? And when did she recognize him? Could it be that when he planned to appear as Ling Mohan, she had already planned to beat him at his own game? On the other hand, Fengjiu, who had returned to the inn, lay down on the bed, patted his chest and exhaled softly. Even after he returned to the inn and locked himself in the room, his heart was still beating fast. Too exciting. Who would have thought that the uncle was actually the Yama Lord? Who would have thought that she would deliver herself to his doorstep? Fortunately, he discovered her early and let her slip away. Otherwise, he would have caught her again. She knew it. How could the two of them have such similar figures? Even their facial features were exactly the same. Furthermore, the Yama King had appeared in the Six Paths City, and now, this uncle was here as well. The Yama Lord's pharmacy was developing an antidote for the Millennium Frost Poison, and this uncle also had the Millennium Frost Poison. This was too much of a coincidence. If she hadn't realized it, she would have been a fool. No, I can't stay in Six Paths City any longer. Now that I've almost bought everything, I should go to the black market and find Ling Shuang first. She turned over and jumped out of bed, walked to the table, and poured herself a cup of wine. Then, she went downstairs and checked out of the room with the shopkeeper. Then, under the shopkeeper's lead, she went to the stables at the back. Who knew? This is my mount. She looked at the white horse that the shopkeeper led out. Her eyebrows raised slightly, and the corners of her lips curved into a smile. However, this smile did not reach her eyes. The shopkeeper was startled and asked, "Isn't this young master's mount? I heard from the waiter that young master's mount is white. There's only one white horse here." "What about the waiter?" "He quit his job this morning." At this point, the shopkeeper's expression changed. Could it be that he secretly swapped young master's horse? Horse? Fengjiu sneered. "My mount is a spirit beast, not a horse." Realizing the seriousness of the problem, the shopkeeper hurriedly said, "I'm really sorry. Young master, such a thing happened when you stayed here. It's our fault in management. Young master, please wait a moment. I'll immediately send someone to the waiter's house to look for him. He just quit his job this morning and should still be at home now." Seeing that the shopkeeper didn't know anything about it, her expression softened and she said, "Get someone to bring me there." The innkeeper hurriedly responded and ordered someone to look after the inn. He personally brought Fengjiu to the waiter's house. However, on the street they saw the smiling waiter turning a corner and walking into an alley. "It's him. Where is he?" The shopkeeper pointed. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw a red shadow sweep past him. Seeing this, he quickly followed. On the other side, when Hui Lang and Ying Yi saw their master coming back with an ugly expression, they couldn't help but feel surprised. Chapter 239. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw his master glance at him coldly. That gaze made his hair stand on end. Could it be that another accident had happened? He was puzzled, but didn't dare to ask. Master always paid more attention to the ghost doctor's matters than expected. He thought that master would only return at night. Who knew that he would return in less than half a day? Most likely, there really was an accident. But, what could have happened? Could it be that the ghost doctor didn't give master a good look? The two of them were perturbed as they looked at their master's dark face. Without saying a word, they entered the room and closed the door. After a long while, the two of them looked at each other and walked out of the courtyard to discuss in low voices. "What do you think happened?" Hui Lang looked at Ying Yi and asked. Ying Yi pondered and said, "It must have something to do with the ghost doctor. Otherwise, master's expression wouldn't be so bad." "Say it. You shouldn't have let us follow you. If we had followed you secretly, we would have known what happened to master and the ghost doctor." Thinking about it, Ying Yi lowered his voice and said, "How about this, you go out and ask around? Where did master go after we came back? And where did the ghost doctor go? We have people in Six Paths City, so it won't be hard to find out. Investigate what happened to master today. This isn't too good?" Hui Lang looked troubled. "If master knows about this, we'll have to bear the consequences. You're master's personal attendant, and I'm master's shadow guard. Look at master's expression when he came back. Shouldn't we find out what happened? Moreover, this matter is most likely related to the ghost doctor. If you don't dare to investigate master's whereabouts today, then investigate the ghost doctor." Hearing him say this, it seemed to make some sense. Thus, Hui Lang nodded. "Okay, then I'll go and be back." After taking a few steps, he paused and looked at Ying Yi, asking, "Why don't you go? You can take part in this too. Inyi looked at him and said, I have to stay here and guard master. I can also stay here and guard master. You go and investigate, so that I won't be the one to suffer. Hui Lang walked back and indicated for him to go. You're really not going? I'm not going. Hui Lang shook his head. He felt that this was not a good task. If you don't want to go, I'll go. But don't ask me when you come back. On what basis? As Ing Yi walked out, he said, Because I'm only investigating the ghost doctor. Only investigating the ghost doctor, even if master knew, it would be fine. Treacherous. Hui Lang cursed in a low voice. Watching him walk away, he returned to the courtyard to stand guard. On the other side, in the alley, Fengjiu stepped on the waiter's back and bent down to play with the dagger in his hand. He looked at the waiter's pale and frightened face on the ground. Where did you put my mount? What mount? I don't know. Before he could finish speaking, a shrill scream rang out. He saw that the second-rate waiter's back had been pierced by the dagger and blood immediately gushed out. The shopkeeper who had caught up was shocked and looked at Fengjiu with a trembling body. Young master, if you have something to say, please don't kill him. Fengjiu pulled out the dagger and wiped the fresh blood on the waiter's face. His gentle voice revealed a bit of carelessness, but it was also frighteningly cold. Where's my mount? Chapter 240. Dawn Cloud Pavilion? She raised her brows and looked at the manager who was wiping off his cold sweat. What's that place? After he heard the name of the pavilion, the manager was stunned for a moment, and then he furiously stepped forward and kicked the attendant a few times. You bastard! Who told you not to be clean? You actually dared to sell a customer's mount to Dawn Cloud Pavilion, how hateful! Hiss! Manager, don't hit me. Young master, spare me. I won't dare do it again. The attendant cried as he begged. At this moment, he didn't have the slightest bit of joy from receiving the money from before. When he thought about how the red-clothed young master was still waiting for him to speak, the manager said with slight uneasiness, Dawn Cloud Pavilion is a place where the disciples of noble families and some cultivators in the city relax and play when they have nothing to do. It's different from ordinary places. Ferocious beasts or spirit beasts are purchased there, and customers are also killed there. When he heard this, Fengjiu's eyes narrowed, and then he stepped on the back of the attendant's injured and bleeding hand, and his cold voice sounded out like ice. How did you steal my mount? With Senior White's lazy disposition, even Bai Xiao might not be able to order it to leave, so how did this attendant get it to be sold at Dawn Cloud Pavilion? I put some medicine in the fish and prawns it ate, and then I used a cart to transport it away. At this moment, the attendant even had the heart to die. He originally thought that the customer wouldn't notice that his mount was missing so quickly, but who knew that he hadn't even had the time to run when the customer came looking for him. Fengjiu stretched out his hand and clasped it, and then one of the attendant's arms was removed. A miserable and shrill cry suddenly sounded out, and then the attendant fainted from the pain. The manager was shocked and hurriedly asked, He wouldn't die, right? Fengjiu glanced at the attendant on the ground and said, I only crippled one of his arms, he won't die. As soon as he finished speaking, he said, Where's Dawn Cloud Pavilion? Take me there. The manager swallowed his saliva and said, Young master, things that enter Dawn Cloud Pavilion can't be retrieved. Moreover, they aren't people to be trifled with. They are not to be trifled with, but I am? She glanced at the innkeeper and said, I lost my mount in your inn. I'll deal with you later. Hurry up and lead the way. Don't dilly-dally. In the end, the manager had no choice but to bring Chen Shi before Cloud Dawn Pavilion. It's here. Young master, I won't be going in. Fengjiu waved his hand, indicating for him to go back first. He then walked in and followed the attendant to the open-air beast fighting arena at the back. It was a coliseum surrounded by 3-meter-tall iron cages containing ferocious beasts. There were a total of 100 iron cages, each containing 100 ferocious beasts or spirit beasts. At this moment there were cheers all around. The whole place looked very lively. Even the sound of betting and talking could be heard. Do you think that young Master Lu can tame this spirit horse? If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I really wouldn't be able to see that this fat horse has such great ability. That's right. It's said that he bought it in the wee hours of the morning. Originally, no one paid attention to it because that fat horse had been lying lazily until those ferocious beasts were provoked by the people who shot it. They charged straight at that fat horse. At that time, everyone in the field thought that the fat horse was dead for sure. They didn't expect that it was actually knocked over. You guys came late and didn't see it. That scene made everyone stand up in an uproar. Those aristocratic families' young masters are competing with that fat horse. Dawn Cloud Pavilion is also secretly happy. How much money did they earn? Chapter 241. At this moment, the young master in embroidered clothes suddenly pounced onto Senior White and hugged its neck before turning around with the intention of mounting it. However, Senior White flung him away, causing him to fly up into the sky, and then he somersaulted in midair before taking a few steps back and landing on the ground. At this moment, Senior White seemed to be slightly restless and uneasy. It kicked the ground with its hooves and hissed a few times in a low voice before suddenly charging towards the young master in embroidered clothes, and then it pounced onto the young master who just steadied himself and pressed him down onto its stomach. When they saw the young master in embroidered clothes being pressed down to the point his face flushed red and was unable to struggle free, everyone outside the arena roared with laughter, and their mixed laughter reverberated through the arena and was exceptionally loud. The young master in embroidered clothes was slightly embarrassed and annoyed by everyone's laughter. Coupled with the fact that he was unable to push the fat horse off his body, he was furious to the extreme and withdrew a dagger from the air before stabbing it fiercely at Senior White. Feng Jiu's gaze went cold when he saw this scene, and then his finger moved slightly before a silver needle shot out with a swish. Hiss! The young master in embroidered clothes cried out in pain and gasped while the dagger fell from his hand. When he saw the trembling silver needle on his wrist, he shouted furiously, "Who plotted against me?" Everyone couldn't help but whisper when they saw the young master's movement of stabbing the needle had stopped because of his cry of pain, and the dagger in his hand had fallen to the ground. Meanwhile, Feng Jiu tapped the tip of his foot on the ground and leaped up into the arena. Everyone saw a dazzling red-colored figure flash before their eyes, and then they saw the red-clothed figure flutter in midair before landing lightly on the ground in the next moment. The monstrous young man with a handsome appearance and noble aura stood in the arena with his hands behind his back. His chin was slightly raised while his clear eyes looked down with a peerlessly noble and breathtaking aura. Who's that? Why did he suddenly go in? This young man is really outstanding. Could it be that he's a disciple of a noble family? He doesn't seem to be a member of our Six Paths City, and I've never seen him before. Right when everyone was discussing this, the members of Dawn Pavilion walked out because of Feng Jiu's sudden intrusion, and they were just about to ask about it when the red-clothed young man's voice sounded out from the arena. "Old Bai, come here," Feng Jiu called out. Lao Bai, who was lying on the ground and pressing down on the man in embroidered clothes, suddenly turned his head. When he saw Feng Jiu, he screamed and ran over happily. Everyone had different expressions when they saw this scene. Their gazes landed on the red-clothed youth as they secretly sized him up. From the looks of it, this fat horse belonged to the red-clothed youth? But, if it was his, why would it be sold to Dawn Cloud Restaurant? Everyone's gazes looked towards the people from Dawn Cloud Restaurant, wanting to see how they would deal with this matter. Feng Jiu patted Lao Bai's head and said, "You don't have to rub against me. I'll take you back." This spirit beast belongs to our Clear Sky restaurant. We can't let young master take it away. A middle-aged man walked over with his hands behind his back. He looked at the red-clothed Fengjiu and said, "That's right. I haven't tamed it yet, so how can I let it go?" The man in embroidered clothes walked over as well, and he stared at Fengjiu with a malicious expression. "It was you who used silver needles to plot against me, right? How audacious of you!" Fengjiu glanced at the man and laughed coldly. "Are you sure it wasn't my old bai who tamed you just now?" When they heard this, the people in the surroundings chuckled. The man in embroidered clothes' face flushed red as well, and he shouted sternly at Fengjiu. "How dare you! You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.